Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, People in Another World. Reincarnated Dragon, Call Me Godzilla. Chapter 21. Yes, is that so? When Miglii came to her senses, she saw that the young dragons around her also fell towards the ground like dumplings. Help, it's dangerous, get out of the way. I'm going to fall. Wei Ya, you can fly by yourself. After Sha Yuan finished speaking, he took the initiative to let go of the claws that were holding onto the edge of the crack, and let his body fall downwards. Don't worry, you won't die if you fall. Seeing this scene, the giant dragon instructors announced loudly to the panicked young dragons, all young dragons participating in the trial, go to the depths of the underground labyrinth, where your final trial will be. Find the sacred dragon stone tablets scattered everywhere, and bring the dragon emblem on it back to the ground. This is your task. One more thing, this trial requires the young dragons to complete alone. If you choose to cooperate, then when you get the dragon emblem, only one young dragon can complete it, and all the others will be eliminated, or, defeating other cooperating young dragons and snatching the only dragon crest. How to do it is up to you, but one thing must be remembered, you are not allowed to kill your companions. Otherwise, you will be dealt with seriously. The big red dragon instructor stared at the young dragons below who were all buried in the ground, then looked up at a giant earthquake dragon that was comparable to a mountain, and nodded slightly at it. All right, old man. By the way, where did you throw them this time? Well, the underground labyrinth where the young dragons are tested changes every year, and there are many monsters that are also dangerous to them. How to do it depends on their own choices. Sometimes, luck is also a kind of strength. Quote, the gigantic rock dragon, which looks like a giant mountain of Titan, said in a deep voice, it seems that it is the giant dragon that created the underground rift. Well, let's start counting the time from now. The fastest clearance record in the last trial was 3 months. And this time, if the dragonlings that have not returned within a year, they will be judged as fail. Deep underground in Gesserand, Dragon Island. In the labyrinth of trials. When the dark golden vertical pupils of the black dragon Sha Yuan lit up in the darkness, there was rumble and trembling in the surrounding dim hall. It pushed away the stones pressing on its body, then stood up, the body stretched, and then looked up at the picture in front of him. It's even bigger than I imagined. It's more like a labyrinth than an underground. According to the rules, from now on, if you find and take away the dragon emblem on the sacred dragon steel, and then leave here, you will be deemed as clearing the level. Then, start to act. The black dragon Sha Yuan suddenly stood upright on 2 feet, dragged his tail on the ground, stepped on the ground with his heavy feet, and walked forward. The sight here is dim, but the vision of dragons in the dark is not bad. With the sense of smell and other senses, you can basically judge the overall environment. The uplifted rocks made it messy here, but there was still a fairly wide cave ahead. There are also several roads. It's just that I didn't see many other young dragons, maybe they fell into other fields, or they walked too fast. Walking in the cave, Sha Yuan came to a fork in the road. With the faint light, he could see the image of a dragon vaguely carved on it, vaguely indicating, trial of fire, trial of water, wood trial, different caves such as trial of the earth, and trial of the earth. In other words, let the young dragons choose their own path. I'm a little unsure. A few minutes later, Sha Yuan was still sitting near the fork in the road. He looked up at the murals on the cave, not sure which way he should go. Forget it, I'm not staying here for the rest of my life, why waste time, just choose one. Just pondering for a while, Sha Yuan stopped hesitating, closed his eyes, and moved on. After a while, Sha Yuan came out from the cave of Trial of Wood, and then turned to Trial of Earth next door. A few minutes later, Sha Yuan came out from the Trial of the Earth again. In this way, he also tried to go to the caves of the water and fire trials, and finally returned to the starting point, as if he was thinking. A smart dragon will not hang on a tree. According to my guess, although the 4 caves lead to different directions, they will eventually meet in a line, and this road is the direction leading to the exit. Sha Yuan quickly made a judgment in his mind, and soon he came up with the fastest shortcut. According to speculation, the difficulty of the environment inside the caves of different trials is also different. The most difficult thing is, Trial of Wood, The reason is that the road is not easy to walk. Although it is underground, it looks like a forest, and the trees inside grow very densely. And each tree is very tall, and the trunk is also very thick. The dense foliage obscured the openings overhead, making the entire forest appear dim. The ground is not an ordinary ground. Almost all have to walk on the huge exposed tree roots, so it is not very stable to step on. And the taller the tree itself, the thicker the roots, forming a considerable drop. In some places, the roots are like stairs, which is a natural maze. The easiest one should be Trial of Earth, because the other two, one is full of fire elements, with hot magma everywhere, and the other is full of water elements, with spiral sea currents everywhere. It is very difficult to walk, and it is extremely exhausting. However, although the road of Trial of the Earth is easy to walk, there are many monsters inside. Like a maze, every few corners, there will be a nest of wild monsters, such as giant soldier ants, armored wolves, etc. Wait. Then why did Sha Yuan choose Trial of the Earth? Is it because you want to kill monsters all the way through the level and reach the end quickly? Don't be stupid, those monsters can't be killed. With that time to waste, it is better to think about how to detour faster. The only reason why he chose the Trial of the Land was that Sha Yuan found that the soil there was more fragile than other places. If it is a trial of wood, the old trees underground are entwined and it is very difficult to dig, but if it is a trial of earth, monsters build nests above their heads, and they dig a path under their feet. Wouldn't it be perfect? That's right, this child Sha Yuan was born smarter than other dragons. It is estimated that few young dragons can think of this method, but the problem arises again. After digging the way to the final point, how to get the dragon emblem. If nothing else, the holy dragon steel will most likely be in the most dangerous part of the trial level as a reward item. In this regard, Sha Yuan has two choices. First, while digging through the underground tunnel, poke your head out to investigate the location of the holy dragon steel. It is best to dig directly to the location of the steel. Second, turn into a dragon and snatch the spoils of other young dragons. Then after grabbing the loot, immediately escape through the prepared tunnel, go straight to the finish line, and complete the customs clearance. The first one is based on luck, and the second one is based on strength. So, which one to choose? Sha Yuan clenched her paws tightly, then stood up straight and looked forward firmly. Crack! Sha Yuan, who was still in the shadows, suddenly heard a soft cracking sound. He raised his head, hesitated for a while, and slowly turned his gaze to the nearby ground. He saw the ground in front of his left foot, bit by bit. The ground shattered, as if something wanted to come out of the ground. Monster! Or did I trigger some trap? Sha Yuan took half a step back silently. His cautious character made him always ready when facing unknown dangers, so he entered a fighting state, ready to attack the guy who came out at any time. Crack, click, bang bang. However, when Sha Yuan was hiding in the dark, the ground suddenly exploded, and a golden baby dragon with a size of 3 meters poked its head out, looking left and right to observe the surroundings. The little head trembled for a while, and quickly shrank back. It turned out to be you. Come out quickly, or I will do it. The black dragon Sha Yuan let out a roar, and the golden dragon cub dug out from the ground tremblingly reappeared. When he took a closer look, it turned out to be the high-ranking mad dragon cub who claimed to be the best at fighting. However, Sha Yuan remembered the guy's name. It was the problem child who participated in the young dragon training with him, an extremely cowardly mad dragon named Dilbaz. Dilbaz, what are you doing here? Yes, I'm sorry, brother Reese Mirabo Reese boss. The golden mad dragon looked at Sha Yuan tremblingly, and called out his name. It can be said that there are no dragons around who don't know Sha Yuan, except, of course, the guys from the magic training camp. You're digging a hole. Sha Yuan saw what this guy was doing at a glance, raised his brows, and scolded, I didn't expect that you would do such a shameless thing. We are dragons. You are afraid of fighting at this point. Would you rather dig a hole than compete with others of the same kind? Woo! The mad dragon Direbas shrank his neck in fear, just when he thought that the black dragon twice as tall as himself was going to punch him. The other party suddenly hooked his shoulders, looked around, and after confirming that there was no one there, he lowered his voice and said, How is it, are you sure? Huh. The mad dragon Direbas suddenly opened his eyes wide, looking at Sha Yuan with some uncertainty. I mean digging holes. "Ah no, strategic maze strategy plan, are you sure?" "No, boss, I don't have vision, and I'm not a rock-type giant dragon. I can only dig, and please don't hit me. It's the first time I've done this kind of thing." The mad dragon Direbus hastily shook his head, expressing that he didn't do it on purpose. "It means that as long as someone on the ground gives you directions, you can dig straight to your destination, right?" Sha Yuan fell into deep thought. A few seconds later, he grinned and said to the mad dragon Direbus, "Okay, then let's cooperate." But the mad dragon Direbus was dumbfounded, as if he couldn't understand Sha Yuan's words. "I said the two of us cooperate. You are responsible for digging holes in the ground to find the fastest way out. I will guide you and collect the dragon's coat of arms. How about it?" "But the coat of arms, there is only one." "Idiot, then just grab another one. Our two high-ranking dragons, combined, can't beat that group of underdeveloped guys." Having said that, the eyes of the mad dragon Dilbas gradually lit up. No problem." Sure enough, the naive little Quanglong was quickly tricked by Sha Yuan into joining the team. "I originally thought that I was the only one who didn't take the usual path, but I didn't expect to have a companion," and looking at the thick claws and wrist thorns of the mad dragon, "it is obviously a little expert at digging holes, so I can greatly reduce my action's physical strength. But boss, how can we contact you?" The little mad dragon tilted his head and asked. It does not know the magic of remote communication, and Sha Yuan has almost no magic talent. "It's simple, you listen to my stomping. 3 long strokes, 2 quick strokes, it means digging forward, and vice versa means backward." Sha Yuan briefly talked about the method of contact, and after making sure that the little Quanglong remembered it, he started to act. "Well, so be it, I will always pay attention to your movement underground. When the little crazy dragon digs a hole, the ground will tremble slightly, but this tremor cannot be felt if you don't listen carefully to the ground. Therefore, the 2 young dragons can be regarded as huge guys, but they chose to cooperate so cunningly, and it is the most direct way to avoid fighting. If this matter is exposed, it will definitely be very embarrassing." Of course, Sha Yuan doesn't care about losing face or not. This is a manifestation of wisdom. Isn't it smart to be foolish and reckless? As everyone knows, the interaction between him and the little mad dragon was glimpsed by a figure in the darkness not far away. The abnormally developed black dragon, and the mad dragon. Really, what are these 2 guys doing here? Digging holes. It's too cunning. A female dragon glowing green in the dark blinked her wise pupils, turned her eyes, then smiled slyly, and decided to follow her to have a look. The trial of the earth, in the labyrinth. Woo! Hearing the low growl of the monster, the black dragon Sha Yuan looked around with a vigilant face, but before he could lock the target, growls sounded from around, and black shadows slowly walked away from the cracks in the rocks come out and surround him. It was a wolf-like beast with pitch-black scales. As this, the black-scale wolves. After seeing the real bodies of the black shadows, Sha Yuan entered into a fighting state with solemn eyes. Those fellows had a ferocious temper and terrible hostility. It is 6 meters tall. Although it is a giant dragon, it is only a baby dragon that has just been born for a year. Facing this group of first-level or even second-level magical beasts exuding weak magic power, 3 or 5 should still be within the range of coping, but a dozen or so is dangerous. What's more, the scales have not yet fully developed, and the young dragon is very fragile, and it is still very deadly in the face of monsters who win by numbers and know how to work together. Of course, this premise is that Sha Yuan must be a normal dragonling. However, as you can see above, it's not working. Let's clear the field first, and by the way, test how much my strength has increased compared to before. Black Dragon Sha Yuan thought of this in his heart, and let out a loud roar from his throat. The dragon's vertical pupils condensed suddenly, showing the arrogance of a top predator. There was a faint dragon majesty, and a trace of blue fluorescence climbed up from the dorsal fin of its tail and continued to the vicinity of the head. Seeing that the guy in front of him was extremely dangerous, the black-scaled wolf king raised his head and roared loudly. All the black-scaled wolves rushed towards Sha Yuan like a group of velociraptors rushing towards the Tyrannosaurus Rex as if they had received the command to attack. Then, the bloody and brutal side appeared. The first black-scaled wolf to pounce was hit by the black dragon's claws, and its waist was broken ruthlessly like tofu. The broken limbs splashed wantonly, and the blood stained the eyes of the young dragon. Am I so strong? Sha Yuan's heart was shocked, and he was surprised that he had suddenly killed a black-scaled wolf. But when he thought about it carefully, how could the black-scaled wolf be able to withstand such a big man with almost all his strength? Seeing that these guys couldn't threaten him at all, Sha Yuan rushed forward, and in a flash, more than a dozen black-scaled wolves pounced on him from front, back, left, and right, and began to bite violently. However, when the black-scaled wolves' teeth when they bite, they regret it. This guy's scales are really hard. The black-scaled wolf bit desperately, but it couldn't break through the black dragon in front of it at all, but it hurt it, which inspired the opponent to attack more violently. If you bite me, I will bite you too. Sha Yuan bit a black-scaled wolf as if retaliating, but its bite force was completely different from these guys. I don't know how many tons of force erupted, and the bones of the black-scaled wolf sent out a crushing sound. There was a crisp sound, and the flesh was bloody in an instant, and the wolf's head was splashed out. Roar! The furious roar of the dragon sounded, and another black-scaled wolf was torn apart. Sha Yuan's pitch-black scales were stained with their red beast blood. He took the initiative to attack the enemy. Seeing this, the black-scaled wolf king was terrified, and immediately let out a retreat roar. But before it could complete the order to retreat, the ferocious black dragon rushed over with red eyes. It had no attack skills at all, and it simply used the brute force of the collision to throw more than a dozen black-scaled wolves blocking the way into the air, and the wolf king watched it rush over in horror, and threw himself to the ground. Gahoo! The black dragon that fell to the ground was lying on the body of the black-scaled wolf king, but Sha Yuan seemed to wake up when he heard the sound of bones breaking. He quickly stood up and lowered his head to check his injuries. No wounds. Who is that voice that just broke the bone? When Sha Yuan regained his senses and looked at the dying black-scaled wolf king who was almost crushed to death by him on the ground, he realized what happened. Looking back, he found that the fallen black-scaled wolf was all smashed to pieces, fractures, many of them have been killed by themselves. It turns out I'm so powerful. Raising his hand and looking at the sharp black dragon's claws, as well as his solid and strong body, Sha Yuan suddenly felt a sense of strength from within. To be honest, he has never experienced formal combat training so far. The style of play just now was purely based on brute force, because it is a young dragon. If it is replaced by a long-term young dragon, it is estimated that it can kill all the wolves before they bite themselves. Of course, let alone a giant dragon in his youth, he would sweep away everything with a single bite of the dragon's breath of destruction. It's indeed the body of a giant dragon, and I didn't eat so much meat for nothing during this period of time. After clenching the paws, Sha Yuan returned to an upright position, looking at some tooth scratches on his thighs. Although they were not broken, they still felt a little painful. However, this pain is not as strong as when I fell down, so it can be ignored. By the way, is this the creature that attacked me? Sha Yuan walked up to the corpse of a black-scaled wolf, bent down and picked it up with his paws, only to find that it was surprisingly light. It weighed 200 kilograms, but it felt like a doll. No, it should be said that I am too heavy. Looking back, there were many deep footprints on the ground. Those were the marks left on the ground when he ran, which was quite obvious in this kind of place. Also, for me just now, the dragon's instinct has already begun to affect human thinking during the battle. I usually don't feel anything, but when I get emotional, the warlike nature of the dragon will overwhelm me. Beyond human reason, I am slowly transforming into a dragon. Sha Yuan wiped his paws on the ground, and muttered to himself while wiping off the blood on them. Before I was reborn, I was still a human who didn't even want to kill animals, but now I have become like this, and I have naturally accepted this transformation. Is this my nature? Yes. Human beings have entered modern civilization before the society. Everyone was also a barbaric and warlike berserker. Sha Yuan quickly understood her actions. Fighting may be a biological instinct, but bloodthirsty is not. And I was able to stop the tyrannical actions in time after the threat was lifted, which showed that I did not succumb to pure instinct and would not lose control because of it. Okay, let's go to the next place. After observing for a while, Sha Yuan stomped on the ground to remind the mad dragon Durbas of the direction he was heading, and then left. Not long after he left, a sneaky, slender, green dragon hatchling appeared nearby. Wow, scary. The young dragon, like a little green dragon, looked down at the messy corpses, and then stared at the black guy at the end of his line of sight, which was much bigger than the other young dragons. A trace of fear flashed in his eyes, but he continued to follow. Might be able to find a way out. But she didn't know that her existence had already been detected by a certain figure underground. When the little mad dragon Direbas was digging, he sensed other creatures approaching above his head. The sound of footsteps is not the boss. The crazy dragons, who are extremely sensitive to the vibration of objects, can judge the number, species, size and other characteristics of the target by the vibration of different frequencies. It is obvious that the little green dragon is following the black dragon Sha Yuan. Are you going to tell the boss? The little mad dragon Direbas hesitated in his heart, and quickly made a decision. Because Sha Yuan said, they are a team, and since they are a team, they must be reported. On the other side, after noticing the vibrating reminder from the little Quanglong, Sha Yuan also stopped and began to listen to the frequency of the vibration, as if reminding him of something nearby. A dragon is following me. Sha Yuan spent a little effort, and managed to learn the situation from the vibrating reminder from the little mad dragon. However, he didn't think that such a fierce self would be defeated by other young dragons. What's more, there should be no dragonlings stupid enough to fight themselves before getting the dragon's coat of arms. But this also illustrates a problem, that is, after obtaining the dragon emblem, there will definitely be many young dragons who will come to besiege it, because the trajectory of their actions is too obvious and the footprints are so big that fools can spot them. Therefore, Sha Yuan reminded the little mad dragon Dilbas with a serious expression, telling him not to expose himself. Because after snatching the dragon's coat of arms later, the tunnel of the little mad dragon is his escape route. Of course, before that, the stalker must be eliminated. Thinking of this, Sha Yuan began to walk in the direction of the stone forest, in this forest with many giant stones like towering trees, to lure out the guy who was following him. Sure enough, the guy who followed him didn't have much scheming. Sha Yuan just wandered around seemingly unconsciously, turned left and right and entered behind a huge boulder that could hide her figure. Not long after hiding her body, a strange head popped out from the entrance of the stone forest. Look around and come closer. 19. The black dragon Sha Yuan closed his eyes, held his breath completely, controlled the speed of his heartbeat and began to sense the breath around him, but after reaching a certain distance, no matter how much he concealed it, the smell on his body still couldn't escape the opponent's nose. Therefore, it is impossible for Sha Yuan to wait until the other party realizes his existence, and then it will be too late. So when the following little green dragon approached him, there was still a distance away. Suddenly there was a loud noise in the stone forest, and the black dragon Sha Yuan rushed out, smashing a lot of stone pillars along the way. Towards the petite the green figure swooped away. Roar! The black dragon stared closely at the petite young dragon figure, and roared questioningly, "Are you looking for me? Was it attracted by the bloody smell of those black-scaled wolves just now? What do you want from me?" However, the moment the other party sensed the danger, it turned and ran away, but how could it outrun the rampaging black dragon cub in such a complicated environment? In just a few seconds, it was chased by Sha Yuan go up. In desperation, it seemed that a group of green magic lights flashed, and when Sha Yuan grabbed the little green dragon that was following him, he found that the feeling was not right. Looking down, he found that it was a huge boulder, and the green dragon shadow just now had disappeared. It seemed that what he attacked just now was just a phantom. Fake. Sha Yuan looked at the stone in his arms in confusion, but just when he thought he had misread it, he suddenly looked up and found a green figure with a protruding head on the tallest stone pillar and shrank back. "So that's it, did you run up here?" Sha Yuan squinted her eyes slightly, feeling upset that she was being teased, but this boulder looks a bit big, and it will take a while to destroy it. At the same time, the top of the huge stone pillar. Discovered by. The eyes of the little green dragon with a beating heart widened. She seemed very nervous. She didn't expect this black dragon to be so cunning. It must have taken advantage of her curiosity to deliberately lure herself to such a place. What was even more unexpected was that the other party attacked unexpectedly. Fortunately, at that moment, I used the magic called Phantom of the Dragon to split into two, one fleeing and the other climbing towards the giant pillar. The black dragon really went after the phantom, but in the end he found his true location. What to do, it shouldn't be able to climb up, right? After all, such a fat dragon. Hello, little one. A creepy sound came from the ears, and when the little green dragon looked back in horror, he found that the black dragon had already climbed up. Indeed, he has sound limbs and still has claws and tail to use, so how could he not be able to climb up? You, don't come here, the dragon instructor said, you are not allowed to kill your companions. If you kill me, my parents will not let you go. After being reborn and becoming a dragon, if you want to say what has had the biggest impact on Sha Yuan, it is probably that he has completely integrated into the life and behavioral awareness of dragons. The part of Sha Yuan that was originally a human began to fade away slowly. Although she didn't give up completely, she still began to lean towards the side of the dragon. The nature of the dragon is constantly assimilating Sha Yuan. The most intuitive manifestation is the pursuit of power, the gradually unleashed wildness, and the distortion of aesthetics. He can completely distinguish the beauty and ugliness of a dragon, and he is no longer stuck in a state of face blindness. Because I haven't seen the appearance of a human being for a long time, the image of human beings in Sha Yuan's mind began to fade. So he wasn't sure if his aesthetics would still be alive when he saw humans again. At least now, he finds himself, actually thinks the female dragon in front of him is cute. It could also just be a rapid heartbeat caused by intense exercise. But I have to admit, she is really cute. May I have your name? However, Sha Yuan was still acting in a human way of thinking, trying to control the dragon's instinct, so instead of rushing towards the cute little green dragon in front of him, he kept a distance and observed her patiently. Light green hair, fair neck, and slender eyelashes. Would you be tempted by such a cute girl who fell in front of you with a shy and restrained attitude, showing a defenseless and panicked expression in front of you? If converted into a human image, then the little lowly green dragon in front of Sha Yuan probably looks like this. Name. The little green dragon slightly opened his eyes and looked at the black dragon in front of him. Sylph. The little green dragon replied in fear. Shaloof, does it mean, the spirit of the wind? Then, Sylph, the black holy dragon Sha Yuan looked down at her, grinning as if joking, and said, be my wife when you grow up. These words made Lolita little green dragon dumbfounded on the spot. After a few seconds of silence, she opened her eyes wide in surprise and let out a cry of shock. Hey. Sylph stared dumbfounded at the burly and majestic black dragonling in front of her, shocked by what it said jokingly. But it's too fast. I'm still a whelp. Help. Sylph has never encountered such a thing. After all, she is just a young dragon, how much can a child know? I saw Sha Yuan began to mutter to himself, and then showed a slight hostility after being rejected. Is it too soon? But there is no way. Longsheng always wants to be in line with life, always wants to get married and have children. If he is reborn as a human, there will be no so many troubles and things to think about. So, are you planning to reject my courtship? If so, there is no other way but to kill you. Quote. Please, wait a minute, don't. Hearing the terrifying black dragon that was about to kill her if she disagreed with her, Sylph was so frightened that she almost shed tears and wailed. Really, are you a low-rank dragon? It looks like a green dragon, don't look at me so black. But I'm actually a holy dragon, a real high-rank dragon. Follow me, and maybe we can optimize the genetic bloodline, so that the offspring will become great dragons. Sha Yuan said teasingly that he knew very well that he would become a very powerful existence in the future, and now the investment is guaranteed to be worthwhile. Of course, this is just a trick to fool the other party and make him relax his vigilance. I just didn't expect it to have the opposite effect. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not a green dragon, I'm a phantom dragon, woo-hoo. Sylph showed a weeping expression, as if it was ashamed to be misunderstood about race. Phantom dragon, really, the sky is a little dark, I can't see clearly, you are blue, I thought it was an ordinary little green dragon. Sha Yuan was a little surprised, but if it was a high-ranking dragon, it would be a bit difficult to deal with, at least the consent of the other party's parents must be obtained. This makes sense, as if ordinary dragons don't need it. Well, for ordinary giant dragons, being able to climb up to a high-ranking dragon species is also a dream. However, just as Sha Yuan was thinking about how to proceed next, The phantom dragon girl in front of him suddenly lost control of her emotions and cried, "Wow." She cried very sadly, as if she was suddenly taken aback by someone, threatening her life, or even coercing her virginity. Of course, there is a part of Sha Yuan's joke, just need to explain it. However, the phantom dragon cub in front of him may be too young to digest so many terrible things, so that he burst into tears and burst into tears. It's okay to cry, the key is that the magic in the surrounding air is starting to become chaotic. This made Sha Yuan very nervous. What's going on? The air is distorting. No, am I hallucinating? The next moment, Sha Yuan rubbed his eyes, and found that the dim stone forest in front of him began to change strangely. The world followed him like a bubble, and then there was a scene that made him break out in a cold sweat. The stone forest suddenly seemed to come alive and turned into a huge monster. During the process, Sha Yuan saw a huge monster. That thing walked forward slowly with heavy steps in the distance. Even if it was far away, you could feel the billowing dust just by walking. The body size is close to 100 meters by visual inspection. It was an indescribable creature, like the fusion of a hairless giant ape King Kong and a lion. It's Behemoth. A name appeared in the memory of the dragon inheritance in his mind. It was the name of a very dangerous beast king, a powerful enemy who could threaten the dragon. But that kind of creature is absolutely impossible to appear in such a place, otherwise the young dragons would have died long ago. Moreover, the process of the giant beast walking seemed to be a natural disaster, but the ground did not vibrate, indicating that it was just an illusion. And the culprit who created this illusion, Sha Yuan looked down at the crying little green dragon. No, the little phantom dragon Silaf, it should be caused by her not controlling her magic power from. Is there a phenomenon of chaos? Chaotic demon refers to the process of uncontrollable magic power in the body and chaotic release to the outside world. For example, when some powerful creatures are asleep, the magic power around them will transform the surrounding environment, making the field have the same attributes as it, and even a group of derivative monsters will be born as a result. If that's the case, let's try this. Sha Yuan rushed towards the little phantom dragon Shilufu, and the huge black dragon's body covered her in an instant, but he controlled the force so as not to accidentally kill her or knock her unconscious. Wow. Silaf was taken aback, but she couldn't break free from the black dragon's shackles. The strange thing is that after the whole body was touched by the black dragon, the magic power overflowing from Shilufu was cut off, because the black dragon's scales have a certain degree of magic resistance, that is, the anti-magic characteristic, and it is difficult for magic to pass through the black dragon's body scales. After being hugged in this way, Shilufu can't easily use magic. This is actually a fighting skill. Black dragons often use this method to fight with other giant dragons in close combat. Stop. Gradually, Shilufu opened her eyes, and stared blankly at the phantoms around her gradually disappearing. She seemed a little surprised, and asked excitedly, "How did you do it? How did you do that?" "It's just to make the illusion disappear." "Ah, yes, I have never been able to control my own power, and my magic power often gets out of control." In the embrace of the black dragon, Silaf faltered about her problems. In Sha Yuan's eyes, he thought that the giant dragon was born with more or less flaws, such as the cowardly character of the mad dragon Durbaz, and the overly black-bellied younger sister Migvia. When I met a phantom dragon that was easy to lose control, I subconsciously thought that this was the normal state of dragons. But listening to Shilufu, it seems that this is not the norm. It's a rare case, the guy who is commonly known as a problem child. This kind of existence either dies halfway, or grows up to harm one side. If it is controlled properly, it may become a powerful person. Beings like phantom dragons who are good at spiritual magic, although they are not as powerful as some high-ranking dragon species in terms of combat power when they grow up, they usually act in groups, which means that they will use their powerful spirit to control a large group of family members. Dragon soldiers, worm warriors, dragonoids, and more. Theoretically speaking, the phantom dragon does not need to act by itself. The family it summons can destroy a country, and some powerful phantom dragons can even attach their spirits to objects or other living things, and take possession of them. According to the inheritance memory of the dragon clan, There are some nobles of the human kingdom who like to enter into a contractual relationship with the magic dragon, and use this power to eliminate other political enemies for themselves, and seize power and usurp the throne. However, if the phantom dragon is not determined, it is easy to be backlashed by its own magic. Shalouf's situation is as ridiculous as the fact that the holy dragons don't know magic. However, even in Sha Yuan's situation, he is also unbelievably physically fit, but what about Shilufu? Only when she can control herself and strengthen her will can she master the innate power. According to the characteristics of phantom dragons, the easier they are to be emotional, the greater their innate magic power. For example, Xilufu should have higher magic power than other phantom dragons. I always feel that I have encountered a terrible trouble. Well, just pretend we haven't met, I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Sha Yuan immediately regretted showing affection to such a young dragon, and now he just wants to run away quickly. After all, he didn't want to have contact with problem children at all, because that would cause constant trouble, and he would be approached by various problems. However, ever since Sha Yuan uttered that unreasonable sentence, even though it was a flattery, the little magic dragon believed it was true, hugged his tail tightly, and looked up at him pitifully from bottom to top. I promise you. Promise what? I didn't say anything. Marriage proposal. Little Wanlong didn't know whether it was shyness or something, she said with flickering eyes. Anyway, my family said that I look like this, and it is impossible for a dragon to like me in the future. So I promised you, I will marry you, but after growing up. I'm just kidding, let go quickly, just pretend we haven't met at all. No, you threw me down, you must take responsibility, or I will tell my parents and mentor. Hey, I really don't want to do anything to you. Wait a minute, what do you want? Also, why are you following me? Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanlong was quite stubborn. Sha Yuan had no choice but to change the subject and ignore it for the time being. After all, who will know anyone when they grow up? If you leave the maze, you will be a passerby. I've seen everything about you and that crazy dragon. What secrets are you guys planning, right? What? Sha Yuan turned around and looked at little Wanlong with unfriendly eyes. In that case, I can only silence you. Wait. Little Wanlong was frightened and almost cried again. Just kidding, you mean, you want to join the gang? Act with us. Aha. In fact, the little magic dragon didn't know what plan they were planning, but her intuition told her that it would be no problem to mix with these two dragons. Well, one more person. In this case, 3 dragon emblems are needed. Although the problem is not big, the little magic dragon can't control its own magic power, and I'm afraid it won't be able to provide combat power support. But no matter what, it is still a high-ranking dragon species. In this way, the combined power of the 3 high-ranking dragons can completely rob the trials of other ordinary dragons. Tell me first, what special abilities do you have? Sha Yuan looked at the little magic dragon, and said, Dilbaz can dig holes, and he can tell the position by listening to the sound. As for me, I am very powerful in fighting. But what can you do? The little magic dragon lowered his head in frustration for a while, and seemed to think of something. The instructor said that my senses are very sharp, and I can capture the flow of magic power in the air, and release the magic power into the air to sense the enemy's movement. Position, so as to avoid some unnecessary dangers, and provide vision to observe the enemy by the way. That being said, she was able to follow her all the way here without encountering any enemies, so she must have some tricks. So Sha Yuan nodded. In this way, he can use Siluf's ability to avoid danger in the future, and he can keep moving around those dangerous monsters except in the case of necessary battles. Then, Siluf provided danger awareness, Dilbaz was in charge of digging underground, and I was in charge of fighting in emergencies and snatching the crests from other dragons. The cooperation of 3 dragons is perfect. Thus, the 3 young dragons who did not follow the usual path got together and started a cheating plan. If all goes well, they won't take half a year, no, within 2 or 3 months, it is possible to clear this labyrinth cave. Although the rules say that the young dragons can only complete the trials by themselves, the rules are dead and the dragons are alive. If you really want to pass through the barrier slowly like a fool, that is the most mindless approach. A truly confident person must have foresight, the courage to act immediately, the unswerving determination, and the grace and generosity. Only this self-confidence that penetrates into the bones can make a person move forward unswervingly. The size of the pattern determines the width of the future mind. Sha Yuan, no, Brother Reese Mirabeau Reese, this genetically atavistic black holy dragon, is destined to be different from other giant dragons, and he will make unremitting efforts to achieve his own dragon birth. The trial of the earth, inside the cave. After an hour. What did Durbaz do? He actually dug into such a place, or did I make a mistake? Sha Yuan looked at the huge spiders that surrounded her and Siluf, and said in a panic. That idiot was still caught. It's really embarrassing to the crazy dragon clan. What are you talking about, Exilufu? Wait, are you also being entangled? Sha Yuan looked back and saw that the little phantom dragon was entangled in spider webs in horror. Its mouth seemed to be sealed, unable to use magic, and the magic power from its body was slowly escaping, making the surrounding atmosphere quiet. Crack, click. The giant spiders rubbed their sharp mouthparts, staring at Sha Yuan with 4 pairs of eyes, revealing his black body, spitting out corrosive mucus from their mouths, dripping on the ground, and emitting a slight smoke. After a fight, the skin on my body will peel off. It seems that I can't end the battle without a single injury. Sha Yuan clenched the dragon claws and made a creaking sound, complaining with some dissatisfaction. It's all because the mad dragon Durbaz accidentally dug into the spider's nest, and then uttered, "Boss, help," and disappeared. If Sha Yuan and Shi Lufu hadn't arrived in time, it would have been eaten. Fortunately, the giant spiders have the habit of tying their prey into cocoons and slowly digesting them. In addition, the wild dragon has thick skin and thick flesh, and its vitality is tenacious, so it is not so easy to die. Want to eat me? Sha Yuan opened his mouth, revealing sharp fangs, and whispered. It seems that you don't have that chance. In the next second, the sound of heavy impact and violent destruction resounded through the depths of the ground. The spiders screamed and collided with the black dragon, and then there was the sound of exploding pulp. The power of the black dragon was beyond imagination. A fight begins. A few minutes later, Sha Yuan looked at the behemoth that suddenly appeared in front of him, a little dazed. It was a ferocious monster with 8 curved and segmented legs. It was completely black, covered with fluff, and had a horrible appearance. It has a huge body, about 12 meters high, standing there like a hill, giving people an invisible oppression. Isn't this just an ordinary crypt spider's lair? Why did a spider queen appear? A name emerged from the inheritance memory, making Sha Yuan complain wildly in his heart. No, that's not right. There is a light of wisdom in the spider's eyes. It seems to recognize that his party is a young dragon participating in the trial, and did not attack directly. Maybe it is afraid of the price of killing the young dragon. And from the looks of it, it should be captured by an adult dragon and used as a room boss to guard the checkpoint, right? It is quite possible. So, run away. Ha, ha. Slight panting sounds came from Sha Yuan's mouth continuously. He staggered to the safe side of the cave, looked around nervously, and then looked back at the 2 shivering young dragons, the wild dragon and the phantom dragon. Long has been frightened silly. And around him, there were stumps and broken legs of giant spiders scattered everywhere, a strong sour smell and corrosive liquid spilled all over his body. The scales also changed from pitch black to grayish white, and the ground became even more pitted. Have you escaped? The spider queen was far more powerful than the whelping dragon, but it didn't chase after it. Probably couldn't leave that crypt room. I'm sorry, boss. It's all my fault. The little mad dragon Durbaz wept and apologized. It was he who heard a rustling sound nearby, and then couldn't help digging there. Unexpectedly, he dug into the spider's lair. But now, its body is not miserable. A small half-broken scale fell from the arm of the mad dragon Durbaz, revealing the bright red flesh underneath, and the dragon blood also flowed down its arm, on the ground. No, I ignored the fact that there are enemies underground. Sha Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and muttered to himself. The failure to notice the danger is the fault of our entire team. Every dragon is responsible, and as the captain, I am even more responsible for the safety of my teammates. Woo, boss. The little mad dragon Dilbaz was so moved that he cried even harder. Well, Shi Lufu, the little phantom dragon, also stared wide-eyed. She didn't expect this scary-looking black dragon to be unexpectedly gentle. Facing such unprepared battles often, I feel that sooner or later I will play off. However, it is definitely not a coincidence that a giant spider nest suddenly appeared in this place. Maybe there is a sacred dragon stele here. Quote. Supporting her own body, Sha Yuan staggered towards the front. Really? The holy dragon stele. The dragon emblem must be here, but how can we get it? Sylph muttered softly. It might be difficult if we only rely on one dragon. But we have 3. Although there are many spiders, it doesn't mean there is no chance. Sha Yuan took a light breath, discarding negative emotions, and his brain began to think quickly. While moving his body, recovering his paralyzed body after being corroded by acid, he looked at the surrounding environment structure. Well, the environment is a crypt. Those spiders are born with dark vision. Among us, Dilbaz has a good hearing and can feel subtle vibrations. Therefore, Dilbaz is responsible for monitoring the group of spiders and making sure their main scope of activities, as well as information such as the number. Sha Yuan said, and began to look at the wall. In the dim environment, there are crisscrossing spider webs nearby. On the mottled cave wall in the distance, there are densely distributed fluorescent grasses emitting blue light, like starlight, exuding a strange beauty in the dark cave. This is the beauty that belongs only to caves and crypts. There are scarce resources and food shortages in the crypt. After the female spider reproduces, she often kills the male spider to supplement nutrition for herself and the newly born spiderlings. If I read correctly just now, the spider queen is giving birth to a new batch of larvae. So it should be very nutritious. Sha Yuan looked behind him, and the 2 young dragon companions looked at him with admiration. We went hunting outside and piled up a large number of monster corpses here. Then Dilbaz will be responsible for digging a tunnel leading directly to the depths of the spider's lair. At that time, I will attract the spider queen's attention. Shaloof, you will be in charge. Find the whereabouts of the sacred dragon stele. During this period, Dilbaz also dug the tunnel, and we fled immediately after we found the dragon emblem. Quote. As expected of the boss. The undisguised amazement in the eyes of the little mad dragon Dilbaz seemed to feel great approval for this perfect plan. Hey, are all black dragons so smart? The magic dragon Shilufu was a little hit. She thought that the captain was just big, but she didn't expect that his head was also very good. Correct me, I am a black holy dragon. Sha Yuan looked at Shilufu with dissatisfaction, and then smiled and said, the mind is the most important weapon for our young dragons to survive. No matter how talented we are nothing before we grow up. The current self is not the king of monsters, so before he grows up, it is better to play steadily. Steady development in the early stage, random waves in the later stage. This is Sha Yuan's cautious character. He knows that he is very strong, but he has not reached the point where he can challenge several levels. The Spider Queen is not an ordinary monster, it is just a dead end. Just its 12-meter height is enough to frighten a lot of young dragons. Just do it. The 3 hatchlings began to work together. Exelufu was in charge of finding the prey, Sha Yuan was hunting, and Dilbaz was carefully digging the way to the depths of the spider's lair. In a few days, boom, in the crypt, in the cold empty room, Sha Yuan piled up the collected black scale wolf carcasses, and bumped into a small white spider on the way. The little white spider seemed to be intelligent, and instead of attacking him like the other spiders, it fled in panic. Whatever it is. Although Sha Yuan really wanted to kill the spider, but since the little white spider was not fleeing from the nest, but from another location, he didn't bother to pursue it. Get ready to move. After completing the first step of the plan, the 3 young dragons began to use the smell of blood to attract spiders and lure them into this room. And the other side, with the digging sound of click, click, the rock on the wall above the spider's nest was directly broken, and a claw directly broke through the rock wall and stretched out. And then there was a slight wave on the wall. Sha Yuan and the 2 chicks, the body of the dragon fell from above. Sylph. Yes, superior phantom dragon, magic dragon, shadow clone. Quote. As the magic power condensed, a young dragon that was exactly the same as Exelufu separated, rushed towards the spider queen's position, and then turned and fled. Hiss. The spider queen would not ignore any prey rushing in front of her. She stared at the phantom for 2 seconds, then twisted her body violently, and her upper body popped out directly. With her mouth growing, she bit the phantom of the dragon. Scatter the action. After the black dragon Sha Yuan roared, he dragged his 6-meter high body and rushed towards the 12-meter spider queen. However, he hasn't overreached to collide with the other party. Instead, after attracting the Spider Queen's hostility, he stepped on the ground with both limbs and kicked it up vigorously. His whole body moved to the left and came to the side of the giant spider. With his mouth open, he bit the Spider Queen's leg. At the same time, Sha Yuan's body was blown away by the violent impact when the Spider Queen lifted her leg and slammed into the wall. Boom! Sha Yuan's golden pupils shrank violently. Without the slightest hesitation, his scales trembled, his tail exerted strength, and quickly dodged aside against the deadly threat. Thorny shaved feet run through the body. So strong, stronger than I imagined. Shaloof, hurry up. Sha Yuan became a little scared. He realized that the enemy in front of him was no small matter. Hiss. However, the Spider Queen seemed to be angry, launching a fierce offensive. It kept waving its pointed feet, piercing the wall, and then blocked the little black dragon's flexible movement. Sha Yuan just looked up at it, and felt a sense of oppression. This is the biggest crisis he has ever faced, and it is a real deadly threat, but Sha Yuan's brain still wants to get out of this situation as soon as possible. I don't want to die here. A strong desire to survive flashed through Sha Yuan's mind. Under extreme circumstances, he instinctively wanted to open his mouth, perhaps because he wanted to vomit out of fear, and subconsciously opened its upper and lower jaws. Next, the tip of the tail began to rise with sections of arc-like blue light, first from the tail, then to the back, and finally along the dorsal fin of the nape of the neck, shining blue light. What does it feel like? My stomach is so full and I want to vomit. A mass of scorching hot air swelled up in his chest and abdomen. Sha Yuan let go of his mouth, then mobilized all the magic power in his mouth, lowered his head suddenly, and shot a blue-white flame beam that pierced the darkness in the direction of the Spider Queen. In an instant, a powerful flow of magic power impacted the space in the crypt, piercing through the air, and the bright dragon's breath mixed with lightning knocked the Spider Queen's entire body away. With a roaring explosion, blue waves flew in the entire crypt, black flames, while the black dragon's dorsal fin shimmered. What happened? This earth-shattering sound shocked the mad dragon Direbiz in the distance, and the stunned little phantom dragon Shilufu. What is this? They looked dumbfounded at the Spider Queen who was knocked out. The monster whose rank was much higher than them was struggling to crawl on the ground tremblingly. Blue arcs and shimmer. Is this the holy dragon species? But shouldn't breathing be something that can only be done by giant dragons in the growth stage? The boss can actually do this. Could it be that it is already in the growth stage? The mad dragon Direbiz murmured in shock. Boom. After a violent explosion, Sha Yuan came back to his senses, panting heavily. He felt as if he had lost a lot of energy in his body and became weak. At the same time, a long-lost system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! You have unlocked the new skill, Lightning and White Hot Light. Quote. Ding! You have unlocked a new skill, Lightning White Hot Light. It belongs to the Dragon's Breath skill. Radiant Heat Rays, the primary version of atomic breath, spit out white mist like high-temperature light from the mouth, and produce an arc explosion effect after contacting the air. Boom. Seeing the wobbly Spider Queen standing up again, Sha Yuan was stunned for a moment, and felt the 4 pairs of eyes full of murderous intent light up red. Isn't he dead? That's right, if I killed that guy in an instant so easily, then my breath is too heaven-defying. Sha Yuan didn't know the level of this Spider Queen. But his intuition told him that the guy in front of him was very dangerous, probably even a giant dragon in the adult stage would be hunted and killed, and only the giant dragon in the youth stage could barely defeat it. Therefore, the only option is to retreat. When this thought arose, Sha Yuan turned around and ran towards Shilufu, as if he had found the location of the sacred dragon steel there, so there was no need for him to stay here any longer. Hiss, it hurts. This year's young dragons are too much, or is it that only that nasty guy is special? When Sha Yuan fled after being watched by the murderous Spider Queen. After a long time, the Spider Queen breathed a sigh of relief and let out a helpless sigh. If it wasn't for an agreement with the dragon mentor, she would have angrily wiped out these daring young dragons with a dark beam cannon of dark attribute breath magic. Anyway, she is also a 7-stage monster lord, and she was actually repelled by the opponent. This is also impossible, because the fire attribute and the thunder attribute happened to be the means of restraining the spider's attack, and directly hit the effect of quadruple critical strike. In desperation, she was broken before she had time to defend, so she had to retreat for the time being. Of course, considering her terrifying health bar, this injury can heal in the blink of an eye. But I still feel incredible, because the other party is just a young dragon, and if she is converted to the age of a giant dragon, she has already entered the adult stage. Huh, what's going on? The Spider Queen looked down at the part of her body that was hit by the whelp's breath. There was green smoke rising from it, and a faint blue fluorescent light attached to it, which seemed to greatly reduce her self-healing effect. The energy of this breath actually has the effect of continuous damage. If the Spider Queen knew what radiation was, she would probably know what those tiny energies that constantly hurt the body and widen the wounds were. Of course, this weak injury can't affect her at all. The mind moved slightly, the passive skill, super regenerative healing, was activated, and the small wounds disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the direction of the right paw, 3. Learn. The mad dragon Direbus swung his claws to the right as instructed. As a result, the spider monster that came from afar spewed out green blood and fell to the ground, and the remaining 2 could be seen running away in a hurry. The 3 young dragons were close together. The phantom dragon Exelufu was in charge of finding the monsters, and the mad dragon Direbus was in charge of fighting to solve them. Sha Yuan, a slightly weak black holy dragon surrounded by him, continued to recover his HP. The monsters couldn't get close to him and were wiped out by his 2 companions. It's really lucky. To be honest, I have never encountered a situation that can be regarded as a battle in the past. The Spider Queen is very terrifying. At least until the growth period comes, I definitely don't want to fight it with this body. Sha Yuan said weakly. He felt his body was hollowed out now, as if the magic power accumulated for a long time was released in one breath with his breath. By the way, boss, you are so powerful that you can use breath. That is an attack method that can only be learned by giant dragons in the growth stage. That's right, and it's more powerful than the growth stage young dragons have seen. No, it's much stronger. After the 3 baby dragons moved forward for a while, they didn't expect the other 2 to be more excited than Sha Yuan, as if what happened just now was something incredible. I hope so. Sha Yuan smiled wryly in his heart, and he looked at his skill panel. Dragon's breath, lightning and white-hot light, cooling down. The biological atomic furnace has not yet evolved. It needs to consume 5 points of magic power. It seems that due to the lack of this key, biological atomic furnace, organ, it should be some kind of stomach pouch that stores energy in the dragon, so when using breath, you have to mobilize the magic power of your whole body, convert the magic power into energy, and release it forcibly. If there is a biological atomic furnace, there is no need to consume magic power, but physical strength. As long as the physical strength is still there, it can continue to release continuous breaths for several seconds or tens of seconds. But this is also the growth period, and even the power that will be unlocked in adolescence. Judging from the current magic power, Sha Yuan can only use the exhalation just once a day, and then he becomes weak. His limbs are weak, as if he just came out of the gym, and his body will also be slightly sore. Fortunately, he can speed up the recovery of mana by eating. It's just that the maximum limit of magic power is there. No matter how fast the recovery is, it will not continue to recover when the upper limit is reached, and can only accumulate slowly. It can be regarded as a blessing in disguise. At least a life-saving ability has been unlocked. If it wasn't for the young dragon trial, Sha Yuan would not have dared to confront the Spider Queen. If he had encountered such an enemy in the wild, he would have run away long ago. However, Exelufu, Dilbaz, you did a good job. Because of the vision ability of the phantom dragon Siluf, they seem to have avoided a lot of hordes of monsters along the way. Although Dilbaz dug into the spider cave, he also found the location of the holy dragon steel, which can be regarded as making up for it. Thank you, boss, for the compliment. Hey. Ah, I found it. Is it this stone tablet? After the 3 whelps advanced for a while, Siluf found the identification mark. It was a stone tablet engraved with a coat of arms, and behind the stone tablet were tangled black vines, like a wall. I didn't expect our speed to be quite fast. Sha Yuan was already mentally prepared, thinking that he would have to wander in the crypt for 2 or 3 days, but he didn't expect to be able to find it so easily. But he thought that the Spider Queen should not be the boss of the trial level, but more like a bystander. The real enemy is the group of spider monsters. It's just that he insisted on fighting her, so this happened. That's the sacred dragon steel. Quote, yes, the stone tablet is engraved with the Dragon King's coat of arms that I have seen on the stone tablet outside. The steel coat of arms is composed of a triangle, and the coat of arms presents sharp angles. At first glance, it always looks like the head of a dragon. It seems that this coat of arms contains some kind of overwhelming power. It's just, I seem to have seen this coat of arms elsewhere. Ah, yes, isn't this coat of arms the coat of arms mural hanging on the wall of my house? However, the details are different from that coat of arms, but it looks similar. That's right, since it's called the Holy Dragon Steel, it must have something to do with the Holy Dragon, maybe it was left by his ancestors. Boss, what's wrong? No, nothing. Hearing Dilba's inquiry, Sha Yuan shook his head. Now there is no time to care about the source of the coat of arms. Anyway, get the dragon emblem. Boss, come here. This coat of arms belongs to you. After the two young dragons looked at each other, they took the initiative to step aside and look at Sha Yuan. Okay, then the next two will be given to you. Sha Yuan was not polite. The booty he bought with his life was completely worthy of this coat of arms. Then, the little black dragon put its paws on the stone tablet, looked at it, and seemed to read out the incantation on the stone tablet. This dragon was born only for faith. Its arms are majestic and burly, and it is the royal court of hunting. This dragon has the most illusory horn crown, which symbolizes disaster and is sacred and magnificent. The ancestors stand out, and here we borrow the Holy Dragon King Milady in the name of this, immediately obtain the crest of the Trial of Courage. In the next moment, magic power erupted from the Holy Dragon's stone tablet. At the same time, the exhausted magic power in Sha Yuan's body was instantly replenished, and the injury was completely healed. And the space in front of the steel began to distort. Moving forward from the distorted space, a wall originally covered by black thorn plants slowly spread out, and a stone building appeared. Whoa whoa, I've never seen anything like this. The scene in front of them made the three young dragons sigh. However, it can recover injuries and magic power in an instant. The Holy Dragon Steel is really different. Suddenly, Sha Yuan had a bold idea. Could he use the Holy Dragon Steel to continuously stimulate the cells in his body and absorb the energy in it? I am afraid that this steel itself is a magical item. If the steel is smashed, there might be something like a magic circle hidden inside. However, Sha Yuan always felt that if he really smashed the steel, the owner who created the steel would probably notice it instantly. After all, the Holy Dragon King Milady was also mentioned. He remembered that his great-grandfather was called by this name, right? It's just that the other party doesn't necessarily know him, and maybe he will wipe him out as a family's shame. So Sha Yuan gave up the idea of smashing the steel and went to the stone building. After the three young dragons arrived in the secret room, they looked inside and found the stone platform where the so-called dragon crest was stored. The so-called dragon emblem is actually a huge white scale with some kind of rune engraved on it. System, you have discovered the sacred dragon emblem. After obtaining it, a large amount of magic affinity will be increased, and the recovery speed of magic power will be accelerated during meditation. Although I am not a magic dragon, and I don't know how to meditate, it is still possible to absorb the energy on the scales. Sha Yuan stepped forward and stretched out his strong arm with black scales. After a few seconds, the light lit up, and then the dragon's emblem disappeared. When the arm was retracted, there was a small shining scale on the wrist. As if absorbed on it, it can be taken off at any time. Is this the proof of the trial? The other two young dragons looked at each other, seeing envy and expectation in each other's eyes. You two don't want to partner up to rob me, do you? I declare in advance that I won't show mercy. Sha Yuan protected the trial crest, blocking the sight of the two young dragons. How is it possible? We are not the kind of shameless Wylong. The two young dragons shook their heads seriously, and besides, they couldn't beat them. Okay, but it seems that there is still a door here, and I don't know where it leads. In front of Sha Yuan, a huge 40-meter-high stone door in the stone room is completely embedded in a rock wall, making it necessary to look up. This door, I wonder if it can be opened. Stretching out his paw, Sha Yuan hesitated for a moment, but still driven by curiosity, he pushed towards the stone door, trying to push it away with all his strength. Good weight. However, even though Sha Yuan tried his best, the stone gate in front of him still remained motionless. We're here to help. Only then did the two young dragons come to their senses, and tried to push the door open, but it was of no avail. Could it be pulled outward? Sha Yuan stopped, and began to hug the stone sculpture on the giant door and drag it outward, but the giant door was still motionless. In this case, then dig a hole, Dilbaz, you dig a tunnel underneath. I don't believe that this door is just a decoration. It must be meaningful for such inexplicable things to exist here. After Sha Yuan tried multiple methods to no avail, she decisively gave up trying and chose other methods to crack. I see, boss. The mad dragon Dilbaz nodded, and then began to dig under the giant gate. However, the rock formation here is very hard, and Sha Yuan worked together to dig it, and it only destroyed half a meter in half a day. If it is completely dug to the other side of the door, it will take more than half a month at least. So are they wasting their time here? Silaf, go find something to eat outside. Today, Dilbaz and I fought with it. Anyway, the other young dragons probably haven't found the dragon emblem. We can find it here. Take a break and wait for them, then go grab the other two coat of arms. Quote. Under normal circumstances, Sha Yuan would definitely not do this, even if there were some gold and silver treasures behind this giant door. But now that they are close to the holy dragon steel, as long as their physical strength and magic power are exhausted, they can go directly to pray in front of the holy dragon steel, and then they can quickly replenish their status, and then dig the tunnel, which can be regarded as greatly shortening the time. Okay, leave the food to me. Although Shi Lufu was very puzzled as to why Sha Yuan was fighting against this door, she obediently obeyed the captain's order. And the mad dragon Dilbaz is also digging very hard. He seems to like it very much and is very good at doing this kind of thing. Chapter 31. It's almost too much for me. Sha Yuan looked twitchingly at the hard granite-like rock reappearing in front of him, feeling that his mentality was about to collapse. His paws were almost worn out. Even the mad dragon Dilbaz stopped with sweat on his face, exhausted, and his thick dragon claws were no longer sharp. Such a thick rock formation is actually so difficult to dig. There must be some dragon's secret treasure behind it. Is the guy who built this place out of his mind? Sha Yuan cursed excitedly, swung her tail, and patted the ground vigorously. However, in the process of digging, he learned a skill. Rock Destroyer. When attacking, it can cause higher damage to enemies with earth attributes. Boss, it's too bad. If this goes on, the efficiency is too slow. Unless. The mad dragon Dilbaz retreated a bit. Unless what? Sha Yuan looked back at the golden dragonling. Unless I can evolve to the growth stage and learn Mad Dragon Roar, and Super Vibration Breath. Our family's exclusive dragon breath is to use the vibration of molecular structure to cause damage to the enemy. The harder the object, the higher the damage. For a rock formation like this, if it is a young dragon in the growth stage, it only takes 2 hits to destroy it. If it is a young dragon, it can be pierced with 1 bite. Quote. The higher the hardness, the lower the toughness. The roar of the mad dragon is an indiscriminate attack that shakes the world. It can cause shocking damage to all enemies within a certain range. After all, it is a sonic attack. The super shocking breath is to gather the roar into a straight line to strike. Compared with the large-scale roar, it is more powerful. Even a wall made of diamonds can be pierced in an instant, and it has a fatal restraint effect on rocks. Say it is the same as not saying it. Sha Yuan couldn't complain. If the little mad dragon Dilbaz could learn Super Vibration Breath in a short period of time, then it would definitely fail. At that time, the protagonist will not be himself but it. It doesn't matter, take it slow, since I have chosen, I will go all the way to the dark, I am very stubborn. Sha Yuan gave up thinking and continued to dig and destroy the rock formation. He has an intuition in his heart, that is behind this door, there is something it wants. The incomparable desire in the heart, the closer the distance, the stronger the desire. Since the boss said it, then I will do my best. Anyway, there is a sacred dragon steel nearby to restore blood and mana, and the little phantom dragon Silaf also went to look for food, and they were not worried about being exhausted here at all. Time passed bit by bit. In the crypt cave, there is no sunlight and no props that can tell the time. For the concept of the Dragon Clan, a week is like a day, passing in the blink of an eye. It was about the third week or so, and finally got the results. Boom, boom. Unknowingly, due to the long-term damage to the rock, the arms of the mad dragon Durbas have become extremely strong, and they look far more ferocious and stronger than other parts of the body. Beside it, the red-eyed black dragon Sha Yuan is suppressing the ferocity in his heart. His temper has gradually become irritable, and every blow contains powerful power. He bombarded the rock formation with his fist and claw, tired he just changed people, and finally broke through the obstacles, dug a passage tens of meters long, and penetrated the ground. Boom, boom. With the last sound, the ground was destroyed. When the smoke rose, a few seconds later, a dark and burly figure crawled out, and then a golden dragon shadow half the size from the other end also appeared. Here, behind the door, Sha Yuan's pupils were constantly turning, and he scanned the entire passage quickly. Unlike the dark picture in his imagination, there were green lights everywhere, which looked like fluorescent substances. No, here, Sha Yuan widened his eyes, and then seemed to have noticed something, looked at the huge footprints and traces on the ground, and said, "There is something living here, and, for a long time." For some reason, there was an extremely joyful excitement in my heart, and the cells in my body became comfortable. His eyes fell on the ground, looking at the huge footprints and traces of lying on the ground, and the amount of glowing substances on the surrounding rock walls was extremely large, like a channel with a high concentration of magic power. "Boss, I'm not feeling well." The mad dragon Durbas took a step back, his breathing became slightly heavy, and he said, "I always feel that the magic power in my body is in chaos, I can't seem to use the magic power. And I feel dizzy, is this a prison or something? Place. Dizziness, how is it possible?" Sha Yuan lowered his head and looked at the crushed pieces of fluorescent material with a puzzled look on his face. "Besides, this place seems to be the lair of a giant dragon. Its size is very big. Because the cave passage is very large, it doesn't look like it is reserved for small dragon whelps." After looking around for a while, a possibility emerged in Sha Yuan's mind, that is, he ran to the lair where other dragons used to live. At this moment, on the ground. No way. The gigantic rock dragon that looked like a giant mountain of Titan suddenly opened its eyes and shouted loudly. "Tidnik, what happened?" The mentor of the big red dragon turned his head and asked the huge earthquake dragon that created the baby dragon to test the Great Rift Valley. "My lair was invaded by two little guys." The old rock dragon didn't seem to have fully reacted yet, it turned around blankly and said, "Hey, isn't it? What dragon can push that giant door? Even we have to do it with all our strength. Only you can open that door easily. Are you sure it's the dragon that went in?" The big red dragon tutor opened his eyes wide in an instant, and shouted in disbelief. "That's why I was surprised. Those guys are really not afraid of death." The old Yanlong was also dumbfounded, and said to the mentor of the big red dragon, "Now is not the time to talk about such things. I'm going to find them now. These guys are really desperate. There are a lot of sealed magic stones in my lair. Except for the rock dragons, there are no other dragons to stay at will over there. If it's a baby dragon, if it exceeds an hour, it will die instantly." Quote. There was a mountain-like roar from the old rock dragon. It moved directly towards the direction of the Great Rift Valley, straightened its upper body, spread its wings on the rocks behind, and was about to set off. "Wait a minute, Tidnik, aren't you trying to break the rules of the young dragon trial by doing this? Is it really possible? Even if you are the person in charge, you can't force it." The big red dragon mentor also stood up and shouted at Tidnik. "I don't have time to explain so much. I will decide according to the situation. If it doesn't work, I can only disqualify the intruder from the trial." The old rock dragon responded loudly, and then the huge figure entered the Rift Valley, and after a roar came from the ground, it disappeared at the end of the ground. What happened? Why did Tidnik leave suddenly? The blue dragon instructor and the other giant dragons who were watching the young dragon's trial outside asked in puzzlement when they saw the scene of the old rock dragon leaving. A young dragon went to Old Nick's lair. "It's a forbidden place." Old Nick went to check the situation. The big red dragon instructor said with a worried face. How is it possible? How did the group of young dragons do it? Digging holes. Those rocks were made by Old Nick himself. Any young dragon can do it. Besides, Old Nick's lair leads directly to other trial caves. What if you run to another area? Instructor Blue Dragon asked with an unbelievable look on his face. I'm also curious, what kind of young dragon would do this? The big red dragon mentor sighed helplessly. Rock Dragon Lair. Dilbaz, stay away, something is not quite right here. Sha Yuan lowered his head and looked at the luminous substance that looked like a magic crystal. Staring at that thing, a word crystalline uranium ore emerged in his mind. The system will also give an explanation quickly. Natural crystalline uranium ore, an ore of axial crystal system containing thorium, radium, rare earth elements and lead. The crystals are often in the form of cubes and octahedrons or cubes and rhombohedral dodecahedrons. Black, opaque, semi-metallic to resinous luster. It is highly radioactive. The previous descriptions were very common, but only the latter sentence caught Sha Yuan's attention. Strongly radioactive. This thing has radiation. The little black dragon Sha Yuan was so frightened that his paws trembled. He threw the thing out, but strangely, Sha Yuan didn't feel any physical discomfort or headache. A sense of satisfaction arises from the inside out. At the same time, a reminder sounded in my mind. Ding! You are absorbing natural radioactive elements, and your cell activation is enhanced. Huh, why does it feel so weird? My body doesn't resist, and even likes this kind of ore very much. Sha Yuan hesitated for a moment, thinking whether he should continue to move forward or go back to the gap where he came in and return to the outside. Although according to common sense, going back the same way is the safest option, but if I retreat here, I may regret it. Direbaz, you go back and meet Shi Lufu first, and wait at the door. I will investigate this giant by myself. Dragon Lair, did you hear that? Unable to let the mad dragon Direbaz follow him to take risks, Sha Yuan immediately ordered him to retreat, while he went forward alone. Be careful, boss. The little mad dragon Dilbaz still had something to say, but his head was slightly dizzy, so he had no choice but to accept the order, retreated into the cave, and returned the same way. Why are so many radioactive minerals gathered together? What the hell is going on here? Sha Yuan started to move forward, looking around at the mines around him, and the system beeped one after another. In addition to the crystalline uranium ore just encountered, others include copper uranium mica, calcium uranium mica, raw radium ore, complex dilute gold ore, xenotime and so on. Although there is no particularly strong radioactivity when it is taken out alone, it cannot hold a large amount. And here seems to be full of bright and beautiful uranium minerals. It is simply a forbidden place for normal creatures. If you are not afraid of cancer and death, come here. The dragon's inheritance memory tells me that these things are called sealed magic stones. After being swallowed by the Rock Dragon clan, a special metal can be extracted. This kind of metal can block the effects of magic, and has extremely strong magic blocking properties. It is called blocking magic gold among humans, and it can be made into handcuffs to imprison magicians. Quote, it's unbelievable, but it might be possible. After all, this is a different world. Maybe the radioactive elements can interfere with the magician's control of the magic power, leaving him in a chaotic state. Moreover, there are individual human alchemist masters in the inheritance memory, and they can also be made into demon-blocking gold dust bombs, which can cause terrible damage to magicians when thrown out. It's just that, blocking gold is very rare, only found in areas where the Rock Dragon clan lives. Moreover, rock dragons seem to eat this kind of highly radioactive ore for a living. They rely on eating stones to obtain energy, but ordinary stones have limited radioactive energy, so everything in front of them seems to be stored by an adult rock dragon, food. So, did I break into the lair of a certain adult rock dragon? When Sha Yuan thought of this, he was both worried and expecting, because he could also absorb the radiation here, obtain energy from minerals, and make his cells grow stronger quickly. Never mind. Before the giant dragon comes back, absorb some radiation quickly. Sha Yuan immediately ran towards the most radioactive area, then threw himself on the minerals and kept rolling, so that his scales and skin were contaminated with some radioactive elements. As long as his body touched these things, he could quickly absorb them energy. Although it can also be absorbed through the air, it is not as effective as skin contact. But even so, Sha Yuan still felt that it was too slow, so he opened his eyes wide, picked up a luminous crystal emitting a strange fluorescence, opened his mouth and bit it. Crunch, crunch, the radioactive crystals were quickly crushed, and Sha Yuan swallowed instinctively. After entering the abdomen, I can clearly feel the stomach and intestines contracting at the same time, and then an extremely pleasant refreshing feeling arises. This thing is too good and addictive. No wonder Yanlong loves to eat this. However, even for the Rock Dragon clan, it is not easy to find so many radioactive minerals, so I will not be polite, and treat it as the spoils of the young dragon trial. Ga Wu, Ga Wu. In this way, the black dragon Sha Yuan began to devour the radioactive ore accumulated on the ground ecstatically. It ate all the way, but the whole cave was so huge that even if it ate desperately, it could only eat a small part in a short time. And his stomach is getting bigger and bigger, rocks are accumulated in his body, melted by the terrifying acid. Even if he eats and stretches, he can't control his body shape and becomes fat. Boom! Suddenly, there was a violent vibration from the ground. Sha Yuan, whose mouth was full of ore, widened his eyes, and 1 or 2 stones fell out from the gap in the corner of his mouth. He watched the sound of the giant door not far away shaking slowly. Surprised. It's broken, the owner of the lair is back. Bang, bang, bang. The passage in the cave is very wide, and the old rock dragon Tadnik folded his wings and moved forward slowly. Every step of his huge body made the cave tremble. How did you get here? Just when the old rock dragon Tadnik was halfway forward, there was a panicked movement sound from the depths of the cave, but he couldn't run away because he had eaten too much. Quote. Immediately afterwards, old Yanlong pushed open the door that weighed tens of thousands of tons, and was stunned by the scene in front of him. Boy, don't you want to die? Somewhere in the field of vision, in the pile of magic stones that the old rock dragon usually collects, a young black dragon with a size comparable to that of a grown-up is looking at this side with a big belly, stuffing its mouth with food that is highly poisonous to other creatures of ore. This little guy is dead. Thinking of this, old Yanlong moved forward with a serious face. Boom, boom. The ground trembled with the footsteps of the old rock dragon. Sha Yuan's body was also shaken from time to time, and a large piece of radioactive ore fell from his mouth. Sorry, I didn't, deliberately, Gudong, swallowing ore. Sha Yuan apologized and swallowed the stone in his mouth. But this scene frightened the old Yanlong. The other party's huge body oppressed him instantly. When Sha Yuan thought he was going to be shot to death, the old Yanlong grabbed his tail and lifted him upside down. Spit it out quickly, these stones are dangerous. The old rock dragon looked very headache, and it suddenly regretted that the rock formation was not strong enough, which caused the young dragon to sneak here. Quote. Swallow, already swallowed. Hearing the old Yanlong's voice, Sha Yuan was slightly taken aback, faltering. Wait, how much did you eat? Also, won't your body feel sick? Old Yanlong hesitated for a while, then said. Probably as heavy as me. How did you get here? Old Yanlong thought he heard it wrong, so he let out a dumbfounded cry. I just didn't know what was behind the door, so I just dug randomly and then ran in. It didn't take long for you to come. Sha Yuan tried to explain. So, after eating so many magic stones, it's a miracle that you didn't die. While talking, the old Yanlong put the little black dragon on his paws, frowned and said, Are you a black dragon? To be precise, it's a mutated black holy dragon. Whether you are a black dragon or a holy dragon, it stands to reason that you cannot swallow these stones. You must have the genes of my rock dragon family. The old Yanlong stared at Sha Yuan's body carefully, and found that there was nothing abnormal, but that he was stronger, and frowned slightly. I don't know either. Sha Yuan expressed his innocence, and then asked weakly, So, will your old man punish me? Quote. The old rock dragon was silent for a few seconds, then sighed. No need. Since there were no accidental casualties, you did a good job. So, you are the first dragonling to obtain the trial emblem. The old rock dragon looked at the glowing scales on Sha Yuan's wrist in amazement. Judging by how long it took, in less than a month, a young dragon has already obtained the coat of arms on the sacred dragon steel. If it leaves now, it won't take long to clear the maze. Really, but mentor, I have no plans to leave yet, and I want to stay here for a few days, can I? What do you think? After the old Yanlong finished speaking, Yuan was overjoyed, but soon stopped. I saw, the old Yanlong said with a serious face. Although your body is not damaged, you can no longer stay in the lair. You must leave immediately to avoid adverse effects. But my body is really fine, let me stay here. No, the old rock dragon didn't give Yuan the chance to eat and drink here, anyway, it was its treasure. In other circumstances, if someone dared to do this, he would have been slapped to death by the old rock dragon up. Just like that, Yuan didn't forget to roll up a few radioactive magic stones before leaving, and then watched the stern-faced old rock dragon close the gate again and throw it out. TCH, so stingy. Yuan looked helplessly at the two young dragons that appeared in front of him, feeling as if he had lost gold and silver. Boss, are you okay? I just saw the dragon mentor coming over. Yeah, it scared me, I thought I provoked it. Little Quanglong and little Wanlong approached. But I don't know if it's an illusion, they found that the boss in front of them has grown a lot bigger, and his body has swelled, as if he suddenly became fat, a lot. I'm fine. Crack, crack, chew. Yuan murmured, chewing on the radioactive mineral before swallowing it. My god, boss, why are you eating rocks? Mad Dragon Direbaz asked with some puzzlement. It's terrible, the holy dragon actually eats stones. The magic dragon Silaf had an incredulous look on her face, as if seeing Yuan for the first time. This stuff is delicious, don't you want to have a bite? I don't know if it's an addiction, but in the mouth of the red-eyed black dragon, saliva dripped from the gaps between the sharp teeth. I always feel like eating too much. With this thought in his mind, Yuan fell forward and fell to the ground with a bang, stirring up dust waves. Woo, woo, boss, sleepy. As the call sounded, Yuan saw two anxious-faced baby dragons, but he could no longer hear what they were saying, so he could only slowly close his eyes. From now on, take a good rest and have a good dream. When awakened, the whelp's body will rise to a new level of strength. For mutated dragons and monsters, those radioactive elements are delicacies, Yuan has never been so rich. Even sleeping is a sweet dream. However, the outside body has undergone tremendous changes in the next 10 days. Just when Yuan fell into a deep sleep, somewhere in this world, a dragon war is taking place. Who? The atmosphere screams. The sound of the deep and ancient horn was sounded, and a round sunset passed close to the sky and the edge of the desert, and the ground was dark and dim, revealing a blood red. On the other side of the sound of the horn, two groups of dragon armies, dozens of dragons collided together, fighting, fighting, fighting. The earth roared, and the dragon warriors belonging to two different, dragon king, forces fought with each other. They are so war-thirsty that they are so selfless, even if the dragon scales are torn by the dragon horns, even if the teeth are crushed by the dragon claws, even if the sharp claws are broken by a huge force, even if they are seriously injured and the dragon blood splatters, they still never stopped fighting. The aftermath of the war was earth-shattering, causing the earth to scream, the sky to burn with flames, and the evaporated sea to burst into violent waves. The sky was turbulent, and a gap appeared that seemed to lead to hell. The sea boiled because of this, the mountains broke, the clouds in the sky were blown away, the continents began to tremble, and the world also created cracks. The aftermath destroyed everything on the ground in an instant. With the sound of the dragon's roar, the dragon's breath also began to loot the earth and the sky, causing the mountains, forests, and even lakes on the earth to evaporate in an instant. However, at an unknown time, a huge white dragon flew in the sky, and with its roar, the battle stopped. The two sides dragged the corpses of the dead and injured dragons back to the territory and buried them in the dragon tomb. Do not know why to fight, do not know why to stop, such a cycle, such a conflict. If someone survived and happened to be nearby, such a sigh might be heard. The auras of the Dragon King's apostles have disappeared. It seems that the traitor has succeeded. We must find a way to find the whereabouts of the King Killer, otherwise the Dragon King will blame us and we will all die. After finishing speaking, the shadow of the giant dragon in the atmosphere quickly left, leaving an empty explosion sound in the sky that made the air vibrate for a long time. 10 days later, try the cave. Tick-tock, tick-tock. In a dark cave, the black dragon Yuan shrank its body, and the groundwater seeping from the nearby rock formations dripped from the stalagmites hanging upside down, dripping onto its body. Goo, goo. Sha Yuan closed his eyes tightly, his tail swung unconsciously, and lay on the ground with his arms. Water droplets slowly flowed down his dorsal fin and the gaps in the scales on his body, gradually evaporating. It's so hot. What the hell is going on? Sha Yuan's eyelids moved slightly, he opened them, and muttered to himself into the dim cave. Then, he saw two little guys lying down near him, sleeping soundly. One is golden and the other is blue. It seems that there are two of them, the Mad Dragon Dilbas and the Magic Dragon Exelufu. However, it feels like they are getting smaller. No, this is not an illusion. It's just that they didn't get smaller, but they got bigger. Next, Sha Yuan stared at her reflection in the crypt pool, startled by her appearance. Its head as a black dragon has become more three-dimensional, and it is completely different from the slightly rounded head before. The neck is shortened again, but it does not affect the flexibility, but it looks full of strength, and the bite force is greatly enhanced. The four dragon horns also began to grow, vaguely forming a black crown that pierced the sky, with jagged thorns on the edges of the horns, and a faint golden light emanating from the inside, which may be the mutation caused by radioactive elements. Its body has become stronger, with a sense of oppressive power, and it does not seem to be so bloated. In fact, its hand-to-hand combat ability has been greatly improved. The chest cavity emits a faint red light, and even the red muscles can be seen. As soon as it breathes, the contraction of the chest makes the light appear to flicker and dim, as if it contains some kind of explosive energy. The original dragon wings on the back have also become larger, forming a relatively perfect proportion to the body structure, but the dragon wings are still unable to fly. Fortunately, they can be retracted together with the dorsal fin, and can also provide flexibility support at critical moments. Equivalent to a combination of strengths, strong yet agile. However, due to the rapid evolution, the body's heat dissipation system cannot be solved well, and a red light is faintly revealed on the edge of the black scales. Its body temperature is very high, even when it is not exercising, it is over 40 degrees. That's why Sha Yuan felt a little hot and couldn't help but want to soak in the water. Perhaps it was because of the continuous smoke and sweat evaporating from its body that the little Mad Dragon Durbas and the little Phantom Dragon Exelufu tried their best to find the water source and moved Sha Yuan here. For this reason, the two of them consumed too much physical strength and fell asleep on the ground. In addition, the thorns on the back of the black dragon have also changed a lot, maintaining the short and fine coral shape, and radiating sword shape, exuding faint golden light, like sharp swords. Its tail is very long, and the dorsal fins at the tail can be extended together, merged, and turned into a terrifying sword blade when flicking the tail. The overall tone is black theme, red auxiliary, golden light embellishment. The scales and skin are black, the muscles and blood are red, the dragon horns and dorsal fin are fused with golden light. The dragon wings are dark red and are of little use for the time being, so ignore them. But this cool-looking black dragon is not as bluffing as it looks. Any idea why the color of the dorsal fin changed from blue to gold? That's because the temperature has risen, and the body temperature generated by evolution cannot be dissipated in a short time, and the blue is forced to heat up and become golden. The next step is to heat up to red, and red is the color of danger. In other words, when the dorsal fin turns red, Sha Yuan's life is in danger. All in all, that's it for now. Level. Growth stage, young dragon. Height. 11.3 meters. Overall length. 15 meters. Age. About 1 year old. Talent. Gene of the King of Monsters, cell super regeneration. Dragon's breath. Increase from 1 shot per day to 2 shots. The evolutionary ability from the King of Monsters has begun to take shape, but the bloodline of the giant dragon is considered top-notch in this world, so no matter how he evolves, Sha Yuan will not give up his identity as a giant dragon. That said, wings are an essential extension of the limb. It is estimated that it will evolve a little more in adolescence. At this time, the two young dragons who heard the movement woke up. Boom, boom, boom. Accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps, Sha Yuan got out of the underground pool. He straightened his upper body and waved his tail in the water. Amidst the sound of scales rubbing against each other, Sha Yuan moved his somewhat stiff body. It seems that I have slept for a long time, and my body is rusted. Sha Yuan looked down at his claws and shook them hard. His tail slapped the ground vigorously, making a roar. Very good. Feeling the power gushing out from the muscles, Shaoyuan took a deep breath and stepped forward. And his actions also awakened the two baby dragons who were still sleeping. Wow, so big. Seeing the awakened black dragon brother, Dilba's and Exelufu's eyes flashed with shock and fear, but there was not much inconceivability. Because they saw with their own eyes that when Shaoyuan was sleeping, his bones made crackling sounds, and then his body temperature persisted, his cells divided and grew rapidly, and even his scales had cracks. But as time went by, his body began to grow slowly, it became heavier, and the two young dragons struggled to drag it to the vicinity of the water pool. After the temperature was controlled, the black dragon's body gradually stabilized, and then began to grow rapidly. The two young dragons also breathed a sigh of relief, fell to the ground tired and fell asleep. After they woke up, they found that they had become like this. Although the black dragon stands 11 meters upright, if Shaoyuan chooses to stand on all fours, it will be about 6 meters. Even so, it is nearly twice as big as the crazy dragon Dilba's. Huh, strange, why do you say twice? Shaoyuan felt strange from just now. He looked at his tall body, and then at the body of the mad dragon Dilba's. Before he evolved, he was more than twice as big as this guy. Now that it has evolved, why is it still more than twice its size? First of all, it is definitely impossible for him to stand still, so there is only one possibility, that is, the mad dragon Dilba's has evolved along with him. But even if this is the case, why is it the same for the magic dragon Shilufu? What is going on? Boss, I feel that my body seems to have grown a lot. The little mad dragon Dilba's said loudly. Ha, ha, ha. The little phantom dragon Exelufu was also circling around in shock. She looked at the changes in her body and didn't know what happened. Therefore, Shaoyuan observed and analyzed them. Name: Dilba's. Race: Crazy dragon species mutation. Height: 6 meters, body length 9 meters. Name: Sylph. Race: Phantom dragon species mutation. Height: 3.5 meters, body length 7 meters. The size of the two baby dragons has improved, so the only possibility is external factors. Could it be the influence of radioactive minerals that caused them to mutate? At this time, Shaoyuan saw a newly unlocked passive skill of his own. Biological radioactive dust. Your breath, blood, X-fluid and other cells and tissues all contain biological radiation. After absorbing biological radiation, it will continue to mutate and grow, and eventually grow into a creature that can adapt to any environment, even your subspecies. If one day you become the overlord of the ecological niche, the natural ecological circle centered on you will also imitate you and undergo convergent evolution. From this point of view, Dilba's and Exelufu should have been too close to themselves when they evolved, and inhaled a lot of their own, evaporated sweat and blood, commonly known as biological radiation, soot. Cell tissue will only mutate later. Then, these cells and tissues separated from the body are like parasites. They look for new hosts like viruses, and then start to improve their physique and ability to make the host stronger. In other words, they have evolved themselves, but they have also been transformed by the mutations produced during their own evolution. But if you look at it this way, why didn't my two younger sisters, Migvia and Miglia, who used to sleep with me, not mutate? Well, the high probability is that I hadn't been exposed to radioactive substances at that time, so I didn't really grow up. But this is good news. As I become stronger, my partners and dependents also become stronger, which is also an improvement in combat power. However, this is not an all too rare ability. The Dragon Kings in this world all have the ability to transform other creatures. As long as they are willing, they can instantly create a powerful dragon guard and become a member of the guards guarding themselves. But the weird thing is that Shaoyuan is just a young dragon in the growth stage, he is not yet the Dragon King. Dilba's, Shiluf, this happens to be the result of your hard work during this time. Maybe it's the power of the Holy Dragon emblem that made you stronger. In order to avoid attracting too much attention, Shaoyuan hastily blamed the Holy Dragon emblem. Well, Dilba's and Exelufu couldn't understand what was going on, but it was very possible after hearing what Shaoyuan said. Then why are you bigger than us? Have you forgotten that I ate a lot of glowing stones? At that time, the rock dragon instructor was still very angry, because these stones were all his treasures. So, if you encounter similar stones in the future, you can also eat them to change strong. Ah, don't. Silaf and Dilbaz seem to be reluctant to eat stones, but since their cells have begun to mutate, they will definitely be able to absorb radiation in the future. Maybe it will be the same as myself, and the body will grow uncontrollably, and it will be fun then. Well, it can be regarded as having a companion, so that I will not become too big and lonely by myself. All in all, the trial is almost over. Sha Yuan changed the subject, shook the dragon's claw, and then looked out to the passageway, showing a malicious smile. Yeah, we should go to get our own dragon emblem. Dilbaz and Shi Lufu looked at each other and became excited. It seems that Sha Yuan's evolution, coupled with the increase in size, made the two dragonlings more confident. So, the three phantom gods teamed up again. Not long after, the three young dragons known as the Three Brothers and Sisters Under the Moon, marched mightily towards the deepest exit of the maze, preparing to wait for the young dragons who came there, and then rob them. The Trial of the Earth is composed of countless passages and crypts crisscrossing, like a maze. But what is certain is that the further you go inside, the bigger the cave will be, and at the same time, the creatures in it will be stronger. Now, it is on the only way near the exit. In the darkness, everything is silent. Under the faint light of the fluorescent grass, there seem to be countless tall black shadows appearing. For the young dragons who entered here, this is of course not an illusion, those black shadows are just raised rock pillars and irregular stone walls. But when they relax their vigilance and approach, they will feel a huge evil pressure descending from the sky. Afterwards, the three tall, strong-looking monsters, exuding the aura of being superior to the young dragons, would suddenly jump down from above them, smashing down on the ground in front of them, billowing smoke and dust. What's going on? What's going on? Ah! A brass dragon cub was terrified and sat on the ground, looking at the calm faces of the three young dragons in front of it. It felt great pressure. The other party just stood there, showing their absolute presence. Snort. On the opposite side of the brass dragon cub, the black dragon Sha Yuan seemed to have nothing happened, standing very quietly with its paws in its arms, its black and golden scales shining dazzlingly, and its strong limbs showing its strength all the time. And he is so burly and tall, about 11 meters tall, oppressed by the shadow of the evil dragon. The more obvious abdominal muscles and chest muscles than other young dragons make the brass dragon cub feel suffocated, and he can't help but feel that he is in a certain place. To some extent, it was completely lost. The black dragon stood in the middle position C. On the left is a golden wild dragon that only reaches his waist, but is much taller than other young dragons. It is a full 6 meters high, looking down at this side with an expressionless face. The one on the right is slightly taller than the other young dragons, with her head raised proudly, wearing cool and handsome sunglasses like cool sunglasses. It seems that only by covering her cute and charming eyes can she bring out her icy aura. I am, the great, the unsullied one from the east of Gesserand, the transcendent of the Stormborn, the transcendent of the Migraz Cliff, the White Dragon. The champion of the young dragon trial, the continuation of the blood of the Dragon King, the unarmed wolf splitter, the spider nightmare, the monster slayer, the master of the holy fantasy madness, and the black holy dragon. He is also the young dragon brave who repelled the spider queen, the holder of the holy dragon coat of arms, the conqueror of the trial of the earth. Brother Reese Mirabeau Reese Pulls. Quote, Sha Yuan called out this series of self-proclaimed titles in a cold, emotionless tone, suppressing his voice and exerting a trace of coercion. If you don't listen carefully, it's quite bluffing. Of course, even if you understand it, it's quite scary. Having so many titles on a young dragon also shows that he is different. By the way, he really has the blood of the Dragon King Black Emperor. The magic dragon Zilaf raised her head proudly, as if she was afraid that the sunglasses on her nose would fall off. Sha Yuan specially found 2 pieces of translucent black crystals and polished them, saying that they could add a little bit to the lovely and charming Zilaf. Cold temperament. Aha! Crazy Dragon Durbaz nodded in agreement. He was ordered not to speak more, because if he said more, he would reveal his truth. His voice was too clear and immature. Ooh, what do you want to do? The brass dragon cub fell by the wall. It looked forward in horror. Although there were no scars on its body, both its energy and magic power seemed to be consumed a lot. And he kept panting, staring at the 3-headed dragon not far away, terrified. And in the not-too-distant future, these 3 evil dragons, the pitch-black 3 dragons of holy illusion and madness, will also become the terrifying incarnations that young dragons and young dragons fear. And they are called 3 brothers and sisters under the moon, by other young dragons in awe. Then, stupid and overconfident young dragon, are you going to challenge us? Sha Yuan stared at the little guy with ferocious eyes, and then exuded strong hostility, and might pounce on him at any time to kill him. No, no, no. The brass dragon cub desperately shook its head. It was at a loss, and had no idea what it had done. You want to say you are innocent? How is that possible? Do you know where this is? This is our territory. Have you seen these stone forests? We planted them with our own hands. You have seen these flattened roads, is it? We stepped on it step by step. Yes, this leads to the final point of the trial, but this road can only be passed with our permission, or if we leave money to buy roads. Sha Yuan lowered his voice and explained word by word. The reasons why this place is their territory and why they are guarding it are all reasonable explanations. You can pass here, but you are not allowed to step on the road we paved. Otherwise, it will be regarded as a provocation, and the fruits of our labor will not be taken seriously. At that time, I will feel that you are looking down on me and the 3 of us. If this is the case, we will bully more and less. No, we will deal with you with a righteous 3-on-1. Having said that, Sha Yuan waved his hand at the brass dragon cub looking frightened and crying. An ignorant person is fearless. If you make a mistake for the first time, get out of here. Otherwise, we will take action. Woo! When the brass dragon cub heard this, he got up from the ground as if he had been pardoned, and ran away scrambling. Watching it fleeing in embarrassment, the corners of Sha Yuan's mouth rose slightly. Boss, do you really want to let it run away? That's right, if it tells the story here, what if it doesn't dare to come? The 2 young dragons asked worriedly from the side. Impossible, because I revealed that this is the leading to the final point of the trial. Those young dragons will come to check the situation even if they are afraid. Maybe they will come in a group. Sha Yuan said with a confident face, as if she had predicted what would happen next. Then, are we going to fight them? The mad dragon Durbaz lowered his head in frustration, without any manliness. If you don't want to fight, you don't have to force it. Sha Yuan glanced at him and said with a meaningful smile, after all, the premise of our cooperation is not to force teammates to do things they don't like to do. Thank you, boss. The little mad dragon Durbaz raised his head, his eyes sparkling with gratitude. However, it is still too naive, since it has chosen to join forces with Sha Yuan. Ah no, standing in the same camp, it must either be beaten or beat others. Whether it is forced or actively, it has to participate in the battle. As expected, about half a day later, the figures of several young dragons appeared near the stone forest, looking at them with hostility. Come on, Xiao Di, give them the whole job. Sha Yuan stood with his paws in his arms, and ordered the little wild dragon beside him to create a ground tremor effect, and then the entire stone forest shook violently, as if it was faintly about to collapse. Ah, what's going on? What's going on? These rock pillars suddenly fell down. Before the young dragons understood what happened, they saw several pillars in the stone forest fall to the ground, and then a tall, evil black dragon appeared in front of them. Bold, how dare you destroy my territory, you guys don't want to leave. At the end of the sentence, Sha Yuan didn't give them a chance to think at all, and rushed over from a distance. Everyone be careful, that's a growing black dragon. Why is the growing black dragon here? It's bullying the dragon too much. A blue young dragon who is good at magic looked angrily at the black dragon rushing towards him, raised his claws, and spread his wings on his back. Call. A magic circle of faint blue light appeared behind the blue dragonling. It released the largest number of water blades it could control and shot at Sha Yuan. However, the black dragon came completely unmoved by the impact. He crossed his arms in front of his eyes and let the water blade hit the dragon's arm. The scales with extremely high magic resistance collided with the water blade to cancel each other out. There was a bang 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 sound from his body, and the air in the entire space trembled. The pupils of the blue dragonling condensed instantly, and before he could react, he saw the black dragon approaching in front of him, swung his right claw out, and grabbed at its chest. I won't let you succeed. However, the blue young dragon seemed to have anticipated the action of the black dragon, so he took a step back and stretched out his left paw to block himself. But as a magic dragon, how could it be the opponent of the warrior dragon? The left arm of the young dragon was directly grabbed by the black dragon, and it was pulled into the arms of the black dragon. The black dragon raised its other paw and held the blue young dragon tightly, knocking him to the ground. Woo! The blue dragonling felt suffocated. It barely opened its eyes halfway, but found that its feet were off the ground, its neck was pinched and it was lifted up. The wings on the back were flapping desperately, but it was impossible to escape the iron claws. Something, but not much. The last thing that appeared in the pupils of the blue young dragon was the black dragon's teasing and mocking, followed by a sudden pain in the back of his head, and his consciousness fell into darkness. Boom! Throwing the stunned blue dragonling on the ground like throwing trash, Sha Yuan looked at the other dragonlings who were so frightened that they retreated. Roar! The mighty black dragon let out a muffled low roar. It opened its mouth and aimed at the feet of the young dragons. Its dorsal fin shone with golden light. With its mouth open, its breath burst like blue and white lightning. Boom! In the next second, a violent explosion sounded from the trial site, and the black ground was covered with various cracks, declaring how terrifying the power of this attack was. Quote. The steaming black dragon slowly emerged from the thick smoke and dust, and its bright golden pupils stared at the blasted ground ahead, where the standing dragonlings lost their shapes, leaving only one with a diameter of more than several rice pit. Oh! Following a few screams, the shock wave generated by the breath explosion that penetrated the ground sent several young dragons flying, and they fell to the ground and passed out, losing their fighting ability. Step, step, step. Sha Yuan stepped on the gravel scattered on the ground and walked forward slowly. He looked down at the young dragons lying on the ground, remained silent, flicked his tail unconsciously, groped each of the young dragons one by one, then shook his head in disappointment. No, they don't have the dragon crest on them, so it's a waste of effort. Quote. But it's not a big problem, as long as you wait here, sooner or later you will meet a dragonling carrying a coat of arms. What's more, the current Sha Yuan, whether it's a smoother and more majestic figure, or a sharper increase in size, all show his current strength. If the fighting power of the young dragons is 1 point, then his current fighting power is 10 points. And there are left and right guardians around, and the three-headed dragon formed a team. Position 1. Black Dragon Warrior, Heavy Tank, Main C. Position 2. Kaiser Physical Output, Deputy C. Position 3. Magic Dragon Warlock, Magic Output, Support. It's a pity that the three-headed dragons have their own flaws, and they can't show their true strength 100%, but it's no problem to crush ordinary young dragons. That's all. After about 3 days, the street gradually became lively. Is it you, the evil dragon gang? Are you here to rob other young dragons? Just as Sha Yuan was bored on the road of the last level, eating the radioactive ore dug nearby as snacks, a childish and crisp voice sounded from a direction 100 meters away from him, staring at him intently. This voice. Sha Yuan raised her head and looked at the dragon girl with silver pupils. Ah, it's you. So it's you. No wonder Sha Yuan felt that the young dragon was so brave and dared to challenge himself, so it turned out to be an old acquaintance. Light Dragon, Shikali, Black Dragon, Mirabeau Reese. When the old enemy met, they were extremely jealous. Enemy. That flatters her so much. Sha Yuan never thought that this little silver light dragon girl named Shikali would be her opponent. Unlike silver, black represents fear and the power of darkness. It is associated with the unknown and the mysterious, those things that cannot be seen or are in the dark. Just like the Dragon King, Black Emperor Mirabeau Reese, in the past, its identity is full of various mysteries. Mirabeau Reese is also full of dark fear. It gives the dragon around him the power to give others death and destruction. It can command a city in an instant, or destroy it, and give it the hatred, who brought blood and rain. Perhaps it was because of his behavior of robbing the young dragons, which caused some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps it was simply because the little girl of the Guanglong tribe had a strong sense of justice. Anyway, she came before Sha Yuan and issued a declaration. Evil Mirabeau Reese. It's really you who are causing the trouble. I didn't expect. You have become so huge, but with such powerful power, why do you bully other weak people? The light dragon Shikali's eyes flashed with anger, and she couldn't tolerate the slightest bit of evil and bullying in her eyes. This may have something to do with her inheriting the unique kindness of her ancestor, Baharam, the Dragon King of Light, and even her personality is also a bit arrogant. And then, do you want to play the role of the righteous dragon warrior, defeat the evil black dragon demon king, and save the other young dragons? On the high hillside, Sha Yuan's 4 dragon horns vaguely form a black crown that pierces the sky. There are jagged thorns on the edges of the horns, and a faint golden light can be seen from the inside, similar to the dorsal fin on his back. It is like the synchronization of the divine light, which is faintly visible with the breathing of the chest cavity. In his overlooking view, it was a beautiful and shining silver dragon cub. The noble silver dragon was like the divine messenger of the dragon god. Her wings were slightly forked, which looked like 2 pairs of wings connected together. The wings are like a bright light-winged dragon. It is said that the light dragon king, Baharam, has 3 pairs of wings, 3 on the left and 3 on the left, and a total of 6 dragon wings. Its body is characterized by a silver shell with a unique luster, and huge wings that are large enough to cover the body. Because of its posture of flying in the air with its rainbow-colored 6-winged wings, which is shaped like a round of light, it is not an exaggeration to call it the messenger of the dragon god, so the Light Dragon King also has another name called Bright Dragon King. If the Light Dragon King is furious, he will spread his wings and rise rapidly in the sky. While opening his wide wings and roaring, he will summon a large number of light attribute magic particles to spread to every corner of the sky, and the diffused light elements will spread around, transforming into endless at the same time. The Sword of Judgment stormed towards the ground like a torrential rain. The catastrophe will never end until the surface is destroyed and the wrath of the Dragon King of Light subsides. In this world, there are even poems about the Dragon King of Light. If light awakens in the wings, then darkness is born in the narrow side. If it turns into a wheel of light to illuminate the earth, the darkness will open its eyes and stare at the birth of light. When those eyes are shining with light, the darkness of the heart will also be reflected in the pupil. When that piece of sky returns in reincarnation, when the light returns, new darkness will be born, and countless shadows will fall on the earth, turning into the only poem and spreading in the world. Light and darkness, reincarnation on the road together. Light and darkness are always reincarnated in this world. The light illuminates all diffused shadows, and the shadows return when the light dies. Quote, what this poem describes is that when the Dragon King of Light descends, the entire sky will turn into darkness and crawl. It is like a confrontation between darkness and light in contrast. It can be said to be quite domineering. But this is actually a physical phenomenon, because the light source is too strong. When the Dragon King of Light spreads his wings, he is the most beautiful cub in the world, and the light of nature appears dimmed, and even the sun will be slightly dimmed. It is inferior, so the sky appears dimmed. People who don't know why, thought it was some kind of supernatural power of the Dragon King of Light, and at the same time they were shocked. They recorded, the relationship between light and darkness is accompanied by life, and passed it down forever. With such an arrogant, domineering, sacred and great ancestor, it is no wonder that the little girl of the light dragon species in front of her is so proud. No way, is it reasonable for you to bully other young dragons? That young figure was covered by beautiful silver tiny scales, currently about 2.6 meters tall, shining in the sun, with silver pupils glaring at him angrily on his slender neck and immature and beautiful face. Also, Dilbaz, why did you hang out with him? Could it be that you were coerced? The little light dragon shakily looked at Sha Yuan's side, stared at the mad dragon Dilbaz, and shouted at him. If you want to be coerced, just blink. However, the mad dragon Dilbaz stood there without saying a word. He looked at Sha Yuan, then shook his head at the little light dragon shakily, as if he was trying to persuade the little light dragon shakily not to provoke her again. The boss will be beaten. Black dragon, you are clearly in the growth stage. Why do you come here to bully us, and pretend to be a kind, holy dragon species? You can fool other whelplings, but not me. Quote. So far, the little light dragon shakily is still unwilling to believe the fact that Sha Yuan is a holy dragon. Because as far as she knows, the holy dragon species is a kind dragon species that has a good relationship with the light dragon species, and it is also one of the most gentle-tempered dragon species. And what about the black dragon in front of him? With a height of 11 meters, he stands out like a chicken among a group of young dragons. Besides, Everyone's body size is generally between 1.5 meters and 3 meters, and you alone exceed 10 meters. If you say you are a baby dragon, who will believe it? Of course, under such circumstances, Sha Yuan is powerless to defend himself. Quote. In terms of age, I am indeed a whelp. Like you, I am participating in the whelp trial. However, you can doubt my identity or my age. But there is one thing you have to figure it out. Here, strength is everything. When the little light dragon shakily heard this, her footsteps stopped abruptly, her front paws froze in the air before they landed, and she jumped back suddenly. Looking at the tall black dragon walking in front, she opened her mouth slightly, which seemed a little unbelievable. What do you want? Hearing this, the little light dragon shakily looked at the black dragon in front of her vigilantly. She clenched her fists tightly and spread her wings completely, exuding shining silver scales, entering a fighting state. Are you going to fight with me? Sha Yuan said blankly, either you fight with me, or you fly over here. If you fly over, then I have nothing to do. Fly. The little light dragon heekily lowered her head. Although her wings are not fully developed, she can still fly for a short time. However, if she flew over, wouldn't she be running away? And what about the other young dragons? Have they been bullied by this big black dragon all the time? If the ancestors knew that they were afraid of powerful enemies and succumbed to their inner fears, they would be so disappointed. Thinking of this, the little light dragon Hikuli's eyes became firmer. She recalled her parents' expectations. As a young generation of the light dragon species, her dream was to become a member of the Apostles of the Dragon King and fight in the sky under the command of the Light Dragon King. Become a member of the leader of the dragons. I'll fight with you, but you must let the other whelps leave. The little light dragon Hikuli raised her head and made a statement of challenge. Why should I listen to you? Sha Yuan closed her eyes and tapped her shoulders with her paws. You want this, right? Otherwise, it's impossible to intercept other wormlings here. This is my trial proof, I'll bet you with one. There was a tiny dragon scale shining between the eyebrows of the little light dragon Shikuli. The moment she saw that scale, the coat of arms on Sha Yuan's arm also trembled slightly, as if sensing something of the same kind. Spine. All right, I agree to your challenge request. The black dragon showed a ferocious smile. Whelpling Trial Cave. A certain level of trial of the earth. Call. An extremely low temperature airflow emerged nearby, quickly blowing the surrounding air down. When the ice dragon appeared, it was accompanied by white cold air like smoke, ice fog. Above the ice fog, it was a 6-meter-long, slender female frost dragon. Its shape is reminiscent of a bird, it flaps its wings gracefully, stays in the air, and flaps its dragon wings to land nearby, shaking off countless ice crystals. As a member of the ice dragon, it was not wearing ice armor when it was wandering in the arena. It is a talent of the high-ranking dragon species, Frost Dragon. They can display their abilities according to their needs, wrap their bodies like ice armor, change their outlines, and enhance their combat power. But she didn't do that. The reason is simple. There were no enemies here to make her feel threatened. At this moment, beneath her icy white scales, the jewel-like sky blue shines, and she brings a mysterious frozen atmosphere as soon as she enters the stage. It's like the high-level evolution of the light dragon species into the glow dragon shining in the sky. The frost dragon in front of you can also evolve into the pure ice dragon pink or dark ice dragon dark blue of eternal ice at a high level. Moreover, she is evolving towards that legendary realm. When the time comes, her scales and ice crystals will transform into pink or dark blue, which looks pink and tender but is actually full of destructive power. She doesn't worry about whether her future will fail at all, which is just like the pride in her heart. Isha Aurora Lawrence Gus, you will be the most special ice dragon in the world. She has thought so since she was a child. Aisha thought. In this ancient Drake Island, all creatures are as messy and dirty as the digested food from its stomach. Maybe I am the only one who is different. As a dragon, Ayesa is born a noble high-ranking dragon species, and among the high-ranking dragon species, she is also a very rare elemental dragon species. And she also has absolute strength. Sometimes, she would really like to ask, is it possible that in the entire Long Island, apart from herself, there is no other guy who can look up to her? Anyway, all she encountered so far were weak and low-level dragon species, and they were very fragile. In her opinion, these dragon species are nothing more than cannon fodder on the battlefield even when they grow up, and she will naturally become the apostle of the Dragon King, to serve the Ice Dragon Queen. There is no doubt about this, the Queen of the Ice Dragon, Aurora, is her aunt, and she also likes herself very much. A newborn came. Therefore, Ayasha has never put other dragon species in her eyes. Her parents also taught her the same way, because the blood of those low-level dragons is not pure, and their existence value is to die on the battlefield. And commanding and enslaving this kind of unexamined life is the right given to us by this world. They must be treated with indifference and without mercy. I will never allow the daughter of the noble frost dragon family to have any communication with these lowly guys. In Ayasha's memory, her parents said so sternly. The reason is that she once tried to find a talking young dragon, and that young dragon was a lowly green dragon. Ayasha, those lowly dragons are not worthy to have anything to do with our elemental dragons. Their lives are most meaningful only when they die heroically on the battlefield. Said the father. Ayasha, we are not asking you to close your emotions. But the growth limit of the lower dragon species is there, they are destined to miss you. What you have to do is to be friends with those equally powerful upper dragon species. Of course, forget about the holy dragons like Leonard and Takana's family, they are all freaks, even among the high-ranking dragons, they are a disgraceful existence. Said the mother. Phew. Ayasha slowly opened her eyes, and exhaled extremely low-temperature air from the slender dragon's mouth. For some reason, a strange black dragon figure appeared in her mind. It was the only dragon hatchling who dared to look at her before the hatchling trial began. And, he might be strong. Of course, this doesn't mean that Yisha will take that guy seriously. Although there are some guys who are stronger than garbage in the young dragon group, they are no threat to her. Because Ayasa is strong enough, even among the high-ranking dragons who tremble with fear when they hear their names, she is still the strongest. In the young dragon training camp with magical talents, Ayasha never encountered an opponent who could fight her for more than 3 rounds. She was so strong that even the blue dragon instructors were amazed by her, and she was even surprised by the racial talent gap. The point of inferiority complex. But Ayasha still respects the blue dragon mentor very much. After all, she is very powerful, far stronger than her current self, so there is nothing to say about respecting the strong. If one day, I become stronger than Blue Dragon Mentor, maybe the other party respects me. Yes, Ayasa is known as the strongest frost dragon for hundreds of years. Her classmates bowed to her strength and pride, and they admired the supreme power in their hearts. But the ridiculous thing is that Ayesha is tired of this every day, and it seems that the purpose of becoming stronger is only to respond to the expectations of her parents and the approval of Ant Dragon King. Even if the same kind around her tried every means to praise her, Ayasha no longer felt the slightest excitement. Without a strong competitor, even becoming stronger is meaningless. Isha is so strong, she's the most powerful whelp I've ever seen. If I can marry her, I will definitely be able to honor my ancestors and directly change the genes of the ethnic group. Stop dreaming, you deserve it too. Such shouts can always be heard in her ears, but the day after day will only make her feel numb, and sometimes even bored. Shut up, all of you, or you will be frozen. Ayasha yelled frantically in her heart, but she didn't make a sound, but suppressed her displeasure. She just wants to freeze everything, be quiet, and become stronger alone. Then leave here, go to the Ice Temple, and serve my aunt. But this idea was completely broken shortly afterwards. The reason is that Ayasha heard the screams and cries for help from the young dragons. Wow, wow, wow. Ayasha flapped her wings gracefully and stayed in the air. Among the many dragon species, she was the first young dragon who learned to fly, and slowly flew forward. Looking down at the gradually empty field, Ayasha remained silent, looking for the direction where the young dragons were calling for help. She raised her head and moved her eyes around. Don't get me wrong, she's not out to save those whelplings. I just thought that maybe I would meet a slightly stronger enemy to satisfy the joy I expected in my heart. If that enemy wasn't strong enough, Isha might be very angry. Because she wasted her expectations. Call. A sound of breaking through the air came from the front. Yisha didn't raise her head, but her body reacted, her wings spread, her whole body flew into the air in an instant, and she dodged to the side. Boom! Where Aisha flew past, a stone pillar flew across and hit the ground, making a loud roar. This is not an attack against her, but an accident that flew by accident. The stone pillar seemed to be thrown from the hands of a young dragon that was much larger than the young dragon and had entered the growth stage. It's him. Ayasha stared at the black dragon, and Sha Yuan appeared in her field of vision, with both claws stretched out, but it seemed to be attacking a young dragon of the light dragon clan. There were various scratches on his body, and the pitch-black scales were a bit pale. Various parts of the body have different degrees of scratches, but they are all minor. And under him, the light dragon hatchling lying on the ground half opened one eye, the scales on the left forehead had been broken, and the bright dragon blood flowed from the corner of the eyes along the gaps in the scales, dripping onto the ground. Do you want to continue? Looking at Guanglong shakily, who is still resisting after being beaten like this, Sha Yuan is thinking about his future choices. Since the first time this guy was beaten down by himself, he will stand up tenaciously and continue to challenge himself every time. Every challenge ended in failure. Sha Yuan cannot kill other dragonlings, this is the rule of the trial. I am very unwilling. Shikuli opened her mouth slightly, and with a weak breath, she stretched out her tongue to lick the blood flowing through her mouth, and said unwillingly in her heart. But, I may really not be able to defeat you, but I don't hate you. I hate that I am too weak and let the evil darkness overwhelm the light. Shikuli raised her neck. When facing Sha Yuan's brutal attack before, although she used her speed to evade and caused a lot of counterattacks, the opponent's defense was too strong, and her attack was like scratching and scraping. He just stood and let himself fight, and when his physical strength was exhausted, he began to attack violently. He only lasted for less than 3 seconds before being disintegrated. He could only resist the opponent's attack, and was swept away by the strong tail, out. Although he has evaded as much as possible, Shikuli's physical strength is almost at the limit, and both physical strength and magic power have reached the point of exhaustion. It's really the first time to be beaten like this. You are really strong, but I will definitely get back one by one after I grow up. Having said that, I still lost now. There is nothing to say, Dragon Emblem, it's yours. With tears in her eyes, Shikuli said with moist eyes, but she insisted not to let the tears fall, otherwise she would be looked down upon by the other party. Okay, I'll wait for you to grow up. With a low laugh, Sha Yuan took away Shikuli's dragon emblem, and then forced out a kind smile. No matter what happens to you in the future, it is impossible for me to bow my head in front of young dragons of the same age. I am Black Holy Dragon Brother Reese Mirabo Reese. Sha Yuan didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. In this trial of the young dragons, the number of holy dragon emblems is limited, that is to say, it is destined that a large part of the young dragons will not be able to successfully complete the task. So in the past trials, have no other young dragons snatched the coat of arms? Feeling the envious and fearful eyes of other young dragons, if I were weaker, I am afraid that I would be robbed of the same things. I've been very gentle, Sha Yuan thought to himself. Snort. The light dragon shakily stared closely at Sha Yuan with her right eye that was still open, and the silver vertical pupil reflected the dark and golden figure. And in the process of the two sides looking at each other, there have been changes outside, and it seems that another uninvited guest has arrived. It's really annoying and domineering. Is this what you male dragons do to bully a little girl like this? A cold and pleasant voice sounded nearby, and then the temperature in the space suddenly dropped. And with the appearance of the owner of the voice, the surrounding area was filled with ice and mist, which was extremely biting. In the middle of the ice fog, a looming frost dragon hung in the air, stagnated in the air, flapping its wings and landing nearby, shaking off countless ice crystals. Quote. Sha Yuan, who picked up the dragon emblem on Guanglong Hikuli's body, tensed up, feeling a slight threat. That feeling reappeared, it was the breath of a natural enemy. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.